Live whenever you're listening from Ed Brown's Garage in LA, it's the Season 12 BATTY Awards. Celebrate the biggest night in retro TV podcasting as some of TV's all-time greats face off against lifestyles of the rich and famous. Plus, Archie and Edith Bunker join Donnie and Marie to sing a medley of the nominated theme songs. Dick and Ed help Space Commander Travis pull a hilarious yet diabolical practical joke on Blake 7, and special guests Rip Torn and Rip Taylor perform their classic, Who's on First? I'll show you who's on first, you rat. Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to the Season 12 BATTY Awards from the Man's Garage.
Oh, yes.
It's pretty spacious in here for being a garage.
It looks a lot bigger than it looked on TV, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we moved the gas pump out, and that helps. We thought about using that as a podium or lectern.
Well, I'm glad we didn't use the gas pump because, frankly, sometimes I'm concerned what's going to come out of that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to be too close to that.
Right. You know, we might have visited the man's office beforehand just to get a little relaxed, you know.
Yes. Though he's well stocked in that office.
But
all kinds of supplies.
You know, it's cool. There's a cool vibe where some people are hanging out in Chico's van and some people up on the balcony.
You know, despite the man's initial reluctance, the garage is a surprisingly inclusive place, we found.
And you never know who might drive in.
Yeah, at any moment.
Have you introduced yourself?
I'm Rick.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Thank you, yes.
I wasn't sure.
I'm very excited to be part of, once again, the biggest night in retro TV podcasting. And I'm going to go ahead and say the greatest night in retro TV podcasting. I'm going to add that honorific this time. I've got my Batty Mania shirt on. I want to give a shout out to our listener, James, our friend of the show, for providing me that shirt. But I'm covered up because it's a little chilly in the garage.
It is, yes. Yeah. You're wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers sweatshirt. Sorry, this year.
Well,
it wasn't their year this year.
It wasn't their year. As we find out every year doing the batteries, you can't win them all.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, sometimes, some people put in more effort and better design campaigns than others. But, yeah, it wasn't the Steelers' year.
And it's interesting that your sweatshirt is only honoring 90s AFC championships.
Well, much like my television, I like my clothing retro.
But not totally. You're not including all those the sweatshirt.
Yes,
it's your choice.
It's anchored to a certain time. Yes.
So, if you're new to the Baddies, or if you're old and just need a refresher, this is a show where we give awards to the people and shows that appeared throughout our season. This is not, as we always say, about rewarding us. We're not choosing the best episode of the podcast. We're choosing the best episode of television we talked about.
That's right.
Yes.
If you folks, if you want to talk about the best episode of the podcast amongst yourselves, we're not going to stand in your way, but we're not going to celebrate ourselves in that manner.
Yes. And we have some of the I dare say, the most unique categories in retro TV award show podcast awards shows.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
Did I get that right?
It might not be easy to say, but it's fair to say.
Yeah.
We've got some returning traditional awards. We've got a few new ones we throw in the mix, as always. And, yeah, it's quite a ride. We've got some listener-chosen awards that we'll sprinkle in.
That's correct. And it all culminates with Robert Pine Genius Award.
Yes.
Nobody knows what that's going to be this time. We don't even know.
No.
Do we know? Wait, we don't know.
Well, yeah, but we know it's going to be someone who has made immense contributions to television and could maybe use some more recognition.
Yes. And as always, our nominees were selected by a blue ribbon panel, committee, commission. So, we only have so much to say over that even.
That's true. And I'm going to make one comment. I have a feeling, Mike, I think it's fair to say that the Blue Ribbon Commission, on one hand, I don't want to say they shirk their duties a little bit. Some of these categories look pretty big. I think therefore they're shifting some of the burden of making tough choices to us on the air here. As opposed to sometimes they narrow it down like maybe, a lot more.
Right.
But looking at some of the, I have a feeling we're going to be in for some really tough choices this time.
You think they saw the fairly recent trend of the Oscars nominating, 10 movies for Best Picture?
Yeah.
They just thought, let's go broad.
Yeah, expanding. Now, we don't have any issues with declining ratings or interests, mind you. But that could be part of the rationale. And you know what else could be is, a lot of increasingly in pro sports, you'll have like player contracts. They might have incentives tied to how they do like an all-star voting or awards voting. And some of these performers, they might get a little extra scratch just by appearing on the BATTY nominee list, let alone winning it. So, if it helps out some of these beloved performers, I'm all for it.
Yeah. And the other rules of the game, we set a timer for 5 minutes to discuss it. We sometimes go over. We sometimes forget to set the timer. Things can happen.
Yeah.
The other thing, if we come to a complete deadlock, then we go to a random number generator, which is the only way to decide things.
We do, and I hope the technology works in the garage here.
Yes.
Okay. Have you tested it?
No.
Okay. You're confident that it'll work.
Well, I
Or you're echoing my hope that it works.
Yes,
Yeah,
I believe we have Scatman Crothers on the roof
Okay.
with some sort of antenna.
All right. Well, it's in capable hands then, the situation.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to make a bold prediction that we will be using that random number generator at least once today. I have a strong feeling about that.
All right. Well, let's get into this. Who's going to read the first?
Why don't I do it?
Okay.
I like to think, that I'm in touch with the youth of America, and the first category happens to be outstanding youth.
All right.
So the nominees are Gary Coleman, Kim Fields, Tammy Lauren, and Keith Coogan from The Kid with a Broken Halo, Adam Rich from Dungeons & Dragons, and Big Bird from Sesame Street. And I will mention that last season's winner was Johnny Crawford for The Rifleman.
All right. Starting the timer. So what do you think?
Well, kind of that age-old question, is the Kid with a Broken Halo vote, are they going to cancel each other out a little bit?
Right.
I don't think that's really a concern because Gary Coleman looms so large over the other nominees that he's the clear standout for me in that group.
Yes, I think so. And I don't even think he would need to use any sort of psychic mojo to... in fact, his character might do the opposite and try to get us to choose one of the others.
That's very possible.
Like with the idea that it might improve their lives in some way we don't understand.
Yes. I have not fortified myself mentally for such a maneuver.
Right.
It's hard enough to concentrate and process all these great nominees. So I'd be quite vulnerable to such a maneuver, I must say.
And we know Kim Fields went on to, or had a good career as an actress and has worked as a director, and I believe the other two did well, at least as child actors, right?
Yes.
So I don't know that they need the help.
No.
But maybe they do. I don't know. But from that group, I would certainly choose Gary Coleman.
Whoever cast that movie did a good job.
Yeah. Adam Rich, not his first nomination. Not Gary Coleman's first nomination either.
No.
I believe he might have won back in his Different Strokes.
Yes.
Probably. Yeah, and then Big Bird, who towers over all of these shrimps.
Yeah.
Physically.
Maybe not your first choice when it comes to this category, but certainly legitimate.
Yeah, he is a child.
And he conveys the innocence and naivete of youth.
That's right.
Even more than Adam Rich, surprisingly.
Yes. For me, it comes down to Gary Coleman or Big Bird.
I agree.
Adam Rich's performance as Presto was, sometimes good, but it was also very screechy.
Yes. Maybe not his best work.
Yeah,
I agree. Gary Coleman or Big Bird. To me, what stands out is Gary Coleman, even in the big cast, did that whole movie, whereas Big Bird, the episode we did, didn't necessarily, it wasn't a Big Bird showcase.
No, you're right. If we had done the Mr. Who Bird Dies episode,
yeah,
I think he would be a shoo-in. But
it feels more like more of a cameo, whereas Gary Coleman, and I got to admit, in the back of my mind too, I'm thinking, watch several movies and just, I really enjoyed kind of looking at those TV movies. So Coleman, I might give him the small edge in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he carried that movie.
He did.
With help, but...
He carried a movie with the great Mason Adams and
Robert Guillaume
and June Allison. And you can still say, yeah, he carried
Ray
the movie.
Walston.
Yes. That's a significant accomplishment. And he was carrying NBC for a while.
Yeah, that guy that played the dad of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that choice.
Okay. Gary Coleman, the first winner tonight. Congratulations to the late Gary Coleman.
All right. Came in well under the wire there. Next category, always a favorite, outstanding performance as oneself. So, in this one, we have 3 nominees from the 1984 Summer Olympics: Jim McKay, Peter Jennings, and Carl Lewis. We also have Donnie Marie and George Coble from The Donnie and Marie Show, Robin Leach, Charlene Tilton, and Julio Iglesias from Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Dick Clark, Ed McMahon, Joyce Brothers, Nancy McKeon, and Philip McKeon from TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, it's a good thing we saved some time in that first category because we got a long list. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the blue ribbon panel here. I mean, holy cow. Where to begin here? I find it interesting that George Goebel was nominated.
I do too.
I'm amused by it, but...
I mean, there were a lot of other people on there.
There certainly were. Yeah. not sure that George Gobel stood out particularly. But we did have a little bit of George Gobel discussion on the podcast, which maybe is a factor there.
Right. And, Paul Lynde was playing a character.
Yes. I mean, there's a thin line sometimes between here and some other categories, as we'll maybe get into later. But when you're talking about as oneself, we do make a distinction there.
Yes.
that you're really called upon to be yourself. And Jim McKay and Peter Jennings were definitely themselves.
Oh, yes.
For all that entails.
Right. For instance, when talking about hip hop or breakdancing, I should say, they revealed both. They had done their research and had information, but they really didn't know what they were talking.
Yeah. Very true.
Carl Lewis was certainly, one could argue, he was his best self.
Yes, he certainly was outstanding in those Summer Olympics.
Yes.
Not necessarily the focus of our podcast episode, but an essential part of those '84 Summer Olympics.
Yeah. Robin Leach was Robin Leach, I guess.
Yeah. He surprised me by not being as big a factor in that episode as I think maybe I expected.
At least on screen.
You're right. Now Julio Iglesias, though.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I mean, Julio Iglesias was really, he was taking us into his life and everything. I mean.
Yeah. Did he actually talk? Or did they just talk about him?
I think he had a few comments on
okay.
On his
because mostly I just remember his having a bed in every room.
Yeah.
Which, points to him for being honest about that.
True.
Letting people know. Charlene Tilton, she was refreshingly honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think of those three, she would be my choice, but I wouldn't choose any of those three.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. What do you think about Donnie and Maria? I find it hard to separate those two.
I do too. They weren't really separate in the show at all.
That's right. And, they're doing a variety show. There's a whole body of work there, but it's a little bit of a contrast to some of these other names who distinguish themselves in kind of a one-time event or program.
We talked about it. They're both very good at a young age doing that. Mm-hmm. Since it's hard to separate them, I don't know.
And hard to separate them from George Gobel. So I might eliminate them.
That not just on the show, but apparently in life, they just wanted to hang out with him all the time.
Right.
That was what kept their lives clean, even more than their faith.
Yeah, hanging out with George Gobel.
Hanging out with George Gobel.
Yeah. I can see that.
They all went after the show, went down to the diner for a malted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just talk showbiz and life.
That's right.
I'm sure they could learn a lot from a seasoned pro like George Gobel.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
yes.
And learning the right way too.
Find what you do, and then just do it.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then we have all these people from bloopers.
Yeah. Joyce Brothers, that was a weak segment. I think we both agreed.
Yes.
A particularly weak practical joke that didn't do her any favors.
No, she just took it for what it was.
Yes.
And again, we have the brother-sister problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Normally, I could separate these two, but in that segment, I don't think I could.
Yeah.
Whatever charm that segment had came from their relationship.
Yes. Well, and interesting that you say whatever charm that segment had. Whether intentionally or not, your language, I think, betrays the effectiveness of that segment. So I would eliminate all three of those.
Yeah, and then Dick and Ed, how can we choose between them?
That's true as well.
Although we might have a Jim and Peter problem there, too.
Yeah. Dick and Ed were definitely playing heightened versions of themselves.
Yes.
Weren't they, on that show?
Yeah.
And it's always a pleasure to see Ed McMahon, who maybe has been on the podcast more than any single performer in the history of television in major roles.
Who is even the real Dick Clark?
I don't know.
Remember ever seeing him outside of, programs.
Yeah. When did you did he ever sit down with Barbara Walters or something?
I don't think so.
Have
He
you ever
must have, but I don't remember seeing that.
Have you ever heard the expression coming up an intimate conversation with Dick Clark? No, I don't think so. I don't know if we ever saw the real Dick Clark.
Well, because he might have been, unplugged and
stashed away for a while.
Stashed away.
Especially before New Year's.
Yeah, that's right. He had
regenerate for a week or so.
He just always seemed the same, which maybe that's who he was.
Right. Could be. Well, I don't want to give too much away, but we do have another category later where some of these people will return. And I think we're kind of leaning towards maybe moving away from some of these pairs that we've talked about here.
Right, which means George Gobel is still in the running. And if anyone had told me George Gobel and Carl Lewis would be competing against each other,
right.
I would have said, well, yeah, that makes sense.
I said, I look forward to that. Yeah. And we knew when we started the podcast that we were building to that.
If George Gobel had been in one of those races, Carl Lewis might have only had 3 gold medals.
Yes. I would have liked to have heard Al Michaels on the call of George Gobel, in lane number 6.
Well, this is a strange one.
Yes. That would be...
Juice, what do you think?
Yeah.
I loved him growing up.
I mean, do you believe in miracles?
Yeah.
It would be George Gobel, getting out of the gate without injuring himself.
Yes.
Would have been a miracle.
And he still would have been in a suit.
Yeah. Are we really down to, I think, well, Charlene Tilton was an interesting choice.
Yeah.
The fact that I don't know, you've kind of clouded my memory of the Julio Iglesias segment.
Well, my memory of it is clouded.
Yeah.
Maybe just the pheromones.
Yeah.
On that YouTube clip of an old VHS recording. They're still so strong.
Yeah. I think pretty much anybody that walked into one of Julio Iglesias' 7 worldwide estates had similar issues.
Yes.
Like you said, Charlene Tilton was, open, as open as you can be in a celebrity profile on a fluffy, celebrity-driven show of such shallowness.
Uh-huh.
But she came off quite well, I think.
She did, at a time when her life was maybe not what she had hoped.
That's right. She was in a transition period. You know what? I kind of like her for this category. I think this is a good choice.
It's a surprise.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
She came off more as a TV star. I mean, Carl Lewis maybe had the bigger achievements at the time.
Yes.
But Charlene Tilton, I think, as a TV performer, I think I'd give her the edge here.
Okay.
Wow. That's a bit of a surprise, but well earned, I think, huh?
Well, that's what, the baddies are often about, surprises.
I don't know if you mentioned, but Burt Reynolds won last year for Entertainment Tonight.
Yes, he did.
Just for a little context.
Yeah, talk about another fine performance as oneself in a shallow
right
segment.
Yeah. I believe we'll hear more from Burt Reynolds later this evening.
Boy, he's starting to rack up appearances too.
He really is. He really is.
Too bad no Evening Shade is 90s, right?
I was thinking the same thing. I was just trying to think. I think that was 1990, 91.
Well,
I associate with the Clinton administration so much.
There's always win, lose, or draw.
Yeah. There always is. Well, should we move on to the next category?
Yes, a returning classic after a few years, I think. Biggest exasperation.
Yes, this is an occasional category that returns, when appropriate. And boy, I think it's appropriate this time when I look at some of these nominees. So let's just get to it. We have Kenny O'Malley from Dan August, Archie Bunker from All in the Family, Paul Lynde from Donnie and Marie, Philip McKeon from Bloopers and Practical Jokes, the news reporter who got the Golden Bloopers Award from Bloopers as well, Joe from Rhoda, and The Man from Chico and the Man.
Yeah.
Wow. So what do you think about these?
This is tough. So Kenny O'Malley, that's of course is the mixer. And he was exasperated for the majority of that episode.
Yeah, he was exasperated right from the get-go.
He was always trying to cover it in politeness.
Yeah.
But that, in a way, made it more exasperating, I think.
Yeah. There was like that exasperation bubbling over.
Yeah. Yeah, and Archie, one could argue that Archie is always exasperated, too.
Right.
But he was also a little sad. Anxious. There were a lot of emotions for Archie in this episode.
Yeah. In addition to his usual external exasperation, dingbat and meathead.
Yes. And Paul Lynde's character of museum guard docent.
Yes, the Museum of Television History, I believe it was.
Yes. He was exasperated. He was annoyed. He was catty. All the things you would expect from a Paul Lynde character.
Certainly.
Tired.
Yeah.
Philip McKeon, he was genuinely exasperated, when they wouldn't give him his pants back.
Yeah. That went beyond just being taken aback. He was downright exasperated at that, as was the goal of the Practical Joke.
Yes. The news reporter, she was frustrated.
She was a good sport, but she was getting increasingly...
Joe, I would say, his exasperation was mostly the slow burn variety.
Yeah. Maybe sliding a little bit more towards bemusement at some points. And sorry to interrupt, but they were on a cruise, a situation that caused lots of micro-exasperation.
Yes.
In addition to the big exasperation of being in the tiny stateroom, But by the end of the episode, it certainly seemed like he and Rhoda had sort of come to terms with it, which kind of lessens the exasperation factor for them, maybe.
Yes. And the man, again, a person who's often in a state of exasperation.
Yes.
In this case, he was exasperated with the system. He got exasperated with Chico and their roommates.
Yeah.
And then when Chico was moving out, that also exasperated him, I think.
Yeah. He was exasperated at items appearing in the newspaper.
Yes. And and then he finally was able to relieve it with a nice bath.
Yeah.
And a little alcohol.
Right.
They were all exasperated.
Yeah. I think we can agree on that. The degree may vary, but...
Yes.
Boy, it's tough. Are we looking at who was the most exasperated or who had the best exasperation?
I think more the...
the category literally says biggest now that I look at it again.
Biggest exasperation.
Yeah, that can mean many things.
Yeah. I would still, even though they're the only real people, or real... People experiencing real exasperation.
Okay.
Not portraying exasperation. I would say Philip McKeon, the two from bloopers, I would eliminate.
Okay. I can go along with that.
I mean, they're going head to head with Mickey Rooney and
Yeah.
and Carol O'Connor. And,
Yeah. They were relatively mild exasperation compared to the others.
Yes, and Joe, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As you said, micro exasperations. But then we have, I don't know, 4 legends.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Wow. I mean, it says something when, Paul Lynde is like the youngster in this group. Huh? You got the whole Archie Bunker character is built on exasperation.
Yes.
I think you made a good point though when you said a character was a little bit more. It was more sad. It was a little bit more nuanced than this.
Yeah.
This particular episode, it wasn't so much about the exasperation, although there was plenty of it, but the overall theme was not exasperation compared to some of these other characters.
I mean, some of those moments, like when he's trying to explain things to Edith, and or when she's like giving him dealing with his bowling shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are excellent moments.
Right.
As even though he's being mean. But yeah, it wasn't an episode where he was just like he started with joy. It wasn't one of those ones where he just came in and was immediately like, this epithet was in my cab and or whatever, and I got
right. And traffic was terrible.
and the government and this and that.
And he lost his newspaper on the way home.
And Meathead's big thing having that satchel was more just absurd.
Yes.
Yeah, I think in this case I could.
In fact, I'm starting to lean a little bit the more I think about this.
I know where I'm leaning, but
the way I see it, Archie and the Man are basically exasperated characters, but these episodes were more general exasperation. Whereas if you had Kenny O'Malley, the Mixer, and Paul Lynde, were more like focused exasperation. And Lynde, I'm leaning towards eliminating him a little bit because the segment was, it was relatively small. Whereas the Mixer, like you said, was exasperated the whole episode. I'm kind of leaning towards him.
I am too, and I mean his exasperation was in a great way driving the plot of the whole thing.
Yeah.
His exasperation led that other guy to make terrible choices.
That's right. That's very true.
And it was just, it was a fine performance too.
It was classic Mick. I mean, what a career arc he had where he went from like joy and wonder.
Yes.
Was his hallmark as a youth to later stage Mixter where exasperation was really, one of his kind of his deal in many roles.
Yeah. Sometimes wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, yes, wisdom can come from exasperation.
They can, yes. That's right. He would be exasperated with like the Kid in the Black Stallion. I'm sure. I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure he was exasperated with him.
Yes.
But then, came to love him in that horse.
That's right. Yeah, and he really he got kind of like the big speeches to Dan August that really helps his character in this one, I think. So.
Yeah, especially that one at the end. I mean, that was like maybe the peak exasperation.
Yes, like exasperation fueled by many other emotions, too.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Okay.
All right, Kenny O'Malley, the Mixter.
Because that one hadn't been around for a while, we didn't have a winner from previous season. Okay. Outstanding hair.
Ooh.
Always a good one. Mm-hmm. Chico from Chico and the Man. Michael Douglas as Mike Keller and Michael Lerner as the guy. Not the building manager.
Building manager, yes.
From Streets of San Francisco. Sally Knivet, Jacqueline Pierce, and Gareth Thomas from Blake 7. And Marie from Donna and Marie. Louise from Sesame Street.
Ooh.
Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island, and Joan Collins from Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Wow.
That's some good hair.
Sure is. Okay, well, yes, Chico, of course, Freddie Prinze Jr., or Freddie Prinze Sr., sorry.
Yes.
He does have a real name. Boy, that's quite an array of sci-fi hair. Marie Osmond could probably get, she had a wide array of hairstyles throughout her career.
Yeah.
She had pretty peak Osmond hair at this time.
And she had just gotten it was a new haircut. That was a whole bit.
Yeah, it was for the show. Tina Louise, iconic hair. Mm-hmm. Joan Collins always showing off. The Blake 7 these are interesting, Mike. 3 different types of hair, huh?
Yes. So we had the blonde, vaguely Farrah Fawcett hair from Sally Knivet, the severe but effective short hair from Jacqueline Pierce. Unfortunately, covered up with that ridiculous hat most of this episode.
Yes.
And
severe yet effective.
Gareth Thomas is, just a lot of curly hair.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Much like Joan Collins.
Yes. That's right. I would describe, Gareth Thomas's hair as Raj Blake is earnest.
Yes.
It's a very earnest hairstyle, which is appropriate.
It's the hairstyle of someone who's so earnest he doesn't have time to take care of his hair.
Yes.
Even on a spaceship that probably can cut his hair for him. But that spaceship is full of people with, hair that maybe could use some attention. Mm-hmm. So maybe not. Of the men on that show, I would say it's the best hair because everyone else has some terrible haircuts.
Yeah.
But the various space commanders, Travis, have decent hair too.
Right.
Yeah, and Michael Lerner, just very naturally Large head of hair.
Yeah, his hair showed up to play in that episode.
Yes, it did.
I'm not sure if it was as integral to the character as some of these others, but
No.
but it was impressive.
I think that just might have been his hair on the day.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas Michael Douglas, I mean, that is hair that's integral to the character.
It's integral to the character. It's integral to Michael Douglas.
It certainly is, yes.
To the point where in the rare movies when he doesn't have hair in that sort of style, it makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says something right off
Yes.
the bat. And here, it's just, it's contrast. He's the younger guy, college educated.
But not a hippie.
No, not a hippie, but very, very good hair. And even after, running around and some chase scenes,
Yeah.
he's looking good.
Yeah.
He's a strong contender.
He is a strong contender.
What do you think about Freddie Prinze Sr. here, Chico and the Man?
I mean, it works.
Yeah, I mean, he stuck with that he's pretty consistent throughout the course of the show.
Yeah. There's some similarity between his hair and Marie's hair and Luis's hair.
That's right, yes.
Both in color, black and or very dark brown, and just in style. Luis's is a little longer in this era. Marie's is maybe a little more kept than either of them. Covers the ears.
I do think Luis stood out on Sesame Street quite often with his hair.
Yeah, well, yeah. His main co-stars were Bob, who had floppy hair, and a bald guy.
Yeah.
And Muppets covered in hair.
Right.
Yeah, and women. And yes, of the men. The grown men.
Yeah. I don't know if I would. I think I'd probably eliminate Joan Collins. Good body. Her hair had a good body and a good body of work, but in this episode, it doesn't really stand out to me.
No, it's not the. To me, her face is the thing, and the hairs. I mean, it's fine.
I'm sure she spent a lot of time on it.
Oh, someone did, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Okay. And the two women from Blake 7. Jacqueline Pierce might keep around if she hadn't been wearing that hat the whole time.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Because it's a very effective hairstyle for that character.
It is, yes.
And she happens to have the kind of face that can carry it.
Can pull it off, yes.
Pull it off, yes.
What about Tina Louise, Ginger on Gilligan's Island?
Well, I like a redhead, but she's in contention.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay, boy, this is still pretty tough.
It is pretty tough.
I would probably eliminate Freddie Prinze and Michael Lerner.
Yeah.
And maybe Louise too.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that gives us, Tina Louise, Marie Osmond, Michael Douglas, Gareth Thomas. I mean, that's a pretty good group right there.
That is a pretty good group.
I
One
mean,
could argue that maybe should have been the group.
Yeah. Yes.
If we had any say in what the committee did.
Yes. We could have saved
But there
ourselves
is
some time.
a separation of church and state there.
Yeah. For the integrity of the show, it's good.
Yes.
Well, I'm coming back to, I'm going to eliminate Marie Osmond, in my opinion, because when I think of Marie Osmond, if this were Best Teeth,
Yes.
maybe she'd be a contender. But I don't know if her hair, despite what you said about it, yes, they did a bit about it.
They did.
Just overall, it could have been any kind of hairstyle, and they could have just,
Yeah.
Whereas the other three, the hair is really an essential part of the character, I believe.
Yes.
And part of their acting and performances.
Right.
It's a surprisingly difficult choice between these three have left. I'm surprised Gareth Thomas has stuck around this long.
Yeah, I am too.
This is, kind of a dark horse contender, but it makes sense the more you think about it.
I mean, it is an interesting contrast to the high style of the other two.
Yeah, and kind of befitting the lower budget of Blake 7.
Yeah.
The notoriously low budget of Blake 7.
That's right, yeah.
Often manifested itself in the hairstyles.
On Gilligan's Island, did they ever really talk about did they show, did one of the characters give haircuts to everyone? Because they always had...
You know what? I think maybe they did. I think I say like Marianne was maybe.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes there were various things with wigs and hair being tied back.
Yes, but everyone's hair is pretty much always the same.
It really is, yeah.
I mean, Marianne's and Ginger's changes style, but it's doesn't seem to get longer.
Yeah, I don't know if the guys ever even mentioned their hair.
No, I mean, Mr. Howell probably had some Brill cream or something for what little hair he has.
Yeah.
Keep the comb over in place.
Right. Yeah.
And who knows with Lovey? Maybe she was wearing a wig.
Yeah, that's quite possible. You know what? Boy, it's tough for me because if we were just talking about purely hair, it would probably come down to Michael Douglas and Tina Louise.
Yeah.
Gareth Thomas, because of the overall acting, is in contention there, but
right.
I don't know if that helps any or not.
I don't know. I mean, my gut tells me Michael Douglas.
Yeah, it was very impressive, and the fact that he was in at least one intense running around scene,
yeah,
and the hair was not affected by it.
Right.
I really think that adds to his aura as a law enforcement enforcement official. Which is good for the show. It kind of helps build your trust in those two characters.
Right, yeah.
In a Quinn Martin show, you have faith in the system, usually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Underlying faith in the system.
Yes.
It's tough, but I think I lead towards Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Oof.
I don't think he's not a bigot.
No, I don't think
Doesn't
he's
have
won I don't think he's won a Grammy.
I don't even know if he's won an Emmy.
He might have.
Or a Tony.
I think he did win an Emmy for playing Liberace.
Oh,
he might have won an Emmy in that.
Yeah.
Those TV movies, you know, they have a sneaky way of boosting the BGOT resumes.
That's right.
Well, it's not getting any easier, I'll tell you that.
And last season, Victoria Principal won for Dallas.
Okay, so we kind of went in a different direction this year, and yet maybe not so different. All right, let's move on. Staying with the follicle world, outstanding facial hair.
Ooh.
All right, so we got Freddie Prinze and Jack Albertson from Chico and the Man, Rob Reiner from All in the Family, Gordon from Sesame Street, Billy D. Williams for Dan August, Harold Gold for Dan August.
Harold Gold was not in Dan August.
Oh, Harold Gold for Streets of San Francisco.
No, I think Harold Gold for Rhoda.
Oh, Harold Gold for Rhoda. Okay.
He didn't have a mustache in Streets of San Francisco.
Okay, yes.
Unless we're talking about his eyebrows.
Oh, yes.
Are we talking about his eyebrows?
That's right. I believe this was a special because we didn't have a best eyebrow. This was, I believe it was intended for his eyebrows.
Okay. Yes. And did you say Richard Masur?
I did not, but yes, he was the final one for playing Nick Lobo in Rhoda. Well, what do you think here?
Ooh. Well, as you know, this is one of my favorite categories.
Yes. I'm going to let you cook then, as the kids say.
Yeah. I'm finding it difficult. I mean, I hate to eliminate Richard Masur since I apparently look like him. But his facial hair, that's not the thing that stood out to me about him, to the point that I wasn't quite sure that he had. He had a mustache, right?
I believe he did, yes.
Yeah. So I would eliminate him.
Okay.
Obviously, Gordon having a mustache is classic Gordon. Mm-hmm. At least Roscoe Warman Gordon. Sometimes he doesn't, but, in general. So I'm not ready to eliminate him. Certainly can't eliminate Billy D. Williams.
No, and by the way, I think I forgot to mention Hal Williams won last year for 227.
That's right.
So could this be back-to-back Williamses? That'd be something.
Meathead mustache is part of certainly my image of Meathead.
It really
I don't know
is.
if he ever shaved it or...
I think in some of the later episodes, and it was like, it really had an effect on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it had an effect on Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
I mean, peak Rob Reiner
Right.
has a mustache.
Yeah. And it is very important to the character, but that said, it's not actually an attractive mustache. I mean, it's droopy, and it's definitely important to the character, so I don't want to totally rule it out, but I would say he's not on my short list.
Okay.
Chico and the Man, I mean, they're up there for different reasons.
Yeah, like two different generations of mustaches.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Chico's is, it's kind of slick. Mm-hmm. The Man's is very full and a little wild.
Yeah, it's kind of more of, a guy who's on the make and sort of like has that charisma, as opposed to a guy who's, in many ways, in the beginning of the series, has kind of given up on things, and it's just more of a relic. His mustache is a bit of a relic too.
This is going to be weird. I bet that mustache doesn't smell good. For him. I mean, he might like, but I don't know how often we did see him bathe, so
yeah,
but he just all the drinking he does,
right,
and the gasoline.
Yeah.
Unless maybe he has it there as protection.
That's
from
possible.
Some of those garage odors. There's no bearing on the voting.
Yes, which we're well aware of, right now.
That's right, yeah.
Of all these, if maybe all these people, the one you can most likely picture grooming his mustache, I think, is Chico.
Yes.
And not in a pretentious way, mind you.
No.
But just a guy who takes pride in it and, very carefree in many aspects, but cares about his mustache, and it shows.
And do you think he says anything when he finishes grooming it?
I could imagine he might.
Like, that's nice.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I got a good mustache. For a guy who lives in a van in a garage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's always put together.
He is.
So, yeah, he probably spent some time right in the van, maybe using the rearview mirror.
Mm-hmm. See that?
Work on that mustache. Yeah, that's a good point. Billy D, in general, I think in life, probably taking care of his mustache, too.
Yeah. This is a younger mustache.
And his character is not as slick as some of his other characters.
Yeah.
This is no Lando Calrissian.
This is definitely early Billy D. Williams, an early mustache, yeah.
I think I could probably eliminate him, too.
Yeah, I think so.
We got to talk about Harold Gould, because those eyebrows, I mean, he didn't have his mustache. We're more familiar with seeing him with a mustache, but he certainly used those eyebrows to great effect to help in his portrayal of a little guy.
Yeah, I wonder if that was a deliberate choice. Because if you're using the eyebrows and the mustache in conjunction, you risk getting into Groucho Marx territory.
Yes,
where it's more of a comic effect.
Right.
This was not what he was doing at all.
Someone like Harold Gould, he probably knew that.
Yeah, I mean, to get the pathos of this character, it required only eyebrows.
Right, and he probably knew since since it's a drama, that a lot of it would be in close-up.
Yeah.
Whereas sitcoms, they're usually not in close-up.
That's an excellent point. Wow, I'm impressed how much he thought he put into this character. A one-off on a weekly procedural. What a performer.
Yeah, that's why you hire a guy like him.
Yeah.
Carl Malden knew that.
Yeah. Quinn Martin knew that, too.
Quinn Martin, yeah.
Yeah.
As we know, Carl Malden, one of the reasons to do the show was to work with great guest actors.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
They probably had some theater experience together.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, for me, right now, it's between him and Freddie Prinze.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, as much love as we give to Gordon and Rob Reiner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Harold Gold and Freddie Prinze, eyebrows against mustache. I mean, that's a tough choice, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Two completely different types of facial hair acting.
Yes. It would be unorthodox to award eyebrows in this category, I think. They've had their own category at least once.
That's right, yeah. Unorthodox, not necessarily out of bounds, mind you, but, well, it's here. I don't know. I
mean, I think, Chico's mustache is part of the persona, but he didn't win the hair category.
That's true.
Which is also part of the... I don't know, if he had lived longer and maybe had gotten a haircut, would have that changed the character? Possibly.
It's one of the great what-ifs of television history. What would have happened to Freddie Prinze's mustache in the 1980s?
Oh, yeah.
In a decade of mustaches...
Yes.
And leading men.
Right. Maybe he would have gone the other way and gotten rid of it.
Yeah, that's right. You would have zigged. Another zag. And how interesting is it too that we're talking about this category and Burt Reynolds is not in it.
He didn't have a mustache.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's amazing. I lean towards Harold Gold.
Yeah, I do too.
It just for the.
I somehow went from being surprised that he was in the category
to laying out a great case for it.
Yes, I know. For the streets of San Francisco. Again.
Yes, streets of San Francisco.
Clarify that. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Well, congratulations.
Yes, and as we said, Hal Williams won last year.
Yes.
All right, another, maybe not every season, but most seasons, biggest dope.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily, sometimes it's just people making mistakes. Not necessarily saying they're stupid.
Yeah.
They do stupid things.
Yeah.
Or naive things.
Right.
So our nominees are Eric from Dungeons & Dragons, Gilligan.
Well, yeah.
Meathead.
Yeah.
All the dope fueling the rich and famous on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yeah.
Soviet Premier Konstantin Chernenko.
Yes.
For boycotting the 1984 Olympics.
Yeah.
Arthur Lavery from Streets of San Francisco. Was he the neighbor?
That was the Harold Gold character.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The little guy, yes. Julie McNulty from Kid with the Broken Halo, and that was
the Lonnie O'Grady
character.
Okay. It was a bit of a scold.
A little too focused on the bottom line.
And yeah, last year the hapless thugs from Littlest Hobo.
Yes.
What stands out right away is the Julie McNulty character. While she really fits, I think, kind of what we mean by the biggest dope category, that particular character was not as prominent. Didn't stand out as much. So I would eliminate her.
And I think, and this can fit the nominee, the category a lot, but she was a well-meaning dope.
Yeah.
She just was a little hyper-focused.
Right.
On one thing.
Right. And many times dopes have redemption, not always.
Yes.
Whereas the Harold Gold character, Arthur, he was kind of like the real hapless. Well, the name of the episode was The Takers.
That's right.
And he was taken advantage of.
Yes, he was.
So, kind of the naive type of dope. So, I'd maybe leave him in it.
And then he thought he could win a car chase.
Yeah. Yeah, that was...
It's not a fine
really
moment.
compounded things with that.
I would leave him in. Narcotics dope keep making it into various categories.
Yeah.
It never wins, though.
Yeah.
Just like in real...
Yes, thank you.
Dope never wins.
Yes. And to be fair, it's off camera in this episode.
Yes.
We're making a big presumption. An informed presumption.
Right.
But there was really no obvious evidence of that in the Lifestyles of Rich and Famous, we should say, to be quite clear.
No, I was going to say except somebody's something, but I couldn't think of anything. But, between that club in Antigua and the clubs that French lady ran.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a lot of it, but I'm not comfortable voting for that, given that we didn't actually see it.
Yes. Pure weight.
I don't want to be...
Possibly.
Yes. I don't want to be too overzealous. Then you got, 2 Lifetime Achievement winners possibly in Meathead and Gilligan, huh?
Yes.
Meathead, the classic self-righteous dope, and Gilligan, the well-meaning but just dopey dope.
Yes. Yeah, he might be someone who is brainily challenged.
Yeah. Yes. Well put.
And yes, Eric, of course, is the...
Eric's is a very good...
I mean, he has some common sense, but also fear is driving his...
I mean, I think during that episode, I was actually relatively impressed by some of his decisions. Like, I thought he actually had some good points. I think overall, he certainly fits the category.
Yes. I mean, I think at some point, and now it's a cartoon without real episode-to-episode continuity, so, characters are always pretty much the same, but I would think at some point he would figure out, well, even if you don't agree with your compatriots. You're in this very dangerous place.
Yeah.
And maybe sticking with your friends is a better idea than wandering off into a swamp.
Exactly. Yeah, wandering off into a swamp does not speak well of his character.
No.
That's a good point.
Yes. Even though, in a way, he saved the day by falling through a hole.
Yeah. Well, even a dope gets lucky sometimes.
Yes. As far as Gilligan,
He was not particularly dopey in that episode, though, was he? I mean, everybody was duped.
he did try to fly,
Yeah, that's true.
but he briefly succeeded.
Yeah. I know, yeah.
As long as he believed.
Yeah.
And everyone got confused by the two Howells.
Yes. And it was a really a cunning performance by the imposter, Mr. Howell.
Yes.
So I don't hold that against them too much. And they pretty quickly, people did figure out ways to determine who was who.
Yeah.
Which I was impressed, because in many episodes, they might have, milked that quite longer than they did.
Right, that might have been the whole episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he understood that he got to go rescue Mr. Howell from his running into the lagoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Multiple times. He was quick to react in that.
I would agree. This was not a Gilligan-focused episode.
Yeah,
and he wasn't the catalyst of anything.
Right. He didn't really cause as much trouble as he usually does.
That's right.
I think similarly, Meathead was not particularly dopey. I mean, you mentioned the satchel.
Yeah.
But he was actually more the voice of reason rather than being dopey in this particular episode.
I think so. I mean, and we didn't learn this, but it's very possibly he didn't care for the satchel, but was being a good husband.
Yeah.
Pretending to care for it. Yeah, that's funny.
I mean, he was helping Edith with the puzzle, I guess we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to get this, it would be more like a lifetime achievement. It wouldn't be for this particular episode.
That's right.
I think. Same with Gilligan, probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay with. I mean, they're the first two I thought the committee might nominate, but on the other hand, I think we've made a good argument for why in this case.
I have
Konstantin Chernenko. Yeah. I mean, Jimmy Carter did the same thing.
Yeah.
It was a Winter Olympics, right? Though. No, that was Summer Olympics.
That was Summer Olympics, yeah. Because they won Lake Placid. I have a tough time giving him an award, though, considering how well it turned out for. I mean, it's sort of dopey. You could say that it backfired. Yeah. But I mean, did it really? I'm kind of glad for the boycott. Yeah. Actually.
Right. And of many other things backfired for the Soviet Union eventually.
Yeah.
He wasn't there to see them.
Yeah. No. This is.
Yeah.
Probably in the list of poor decisions, this would, not be as high up as you might think. I think from what I understand, he may have been just doing this to kind of like perpetuate the legacy of Brezhnev, who was the one in 1980 when the Americans boycotted. Brezhnev, I think, was the one who stood the most, to be most angry. So it might be more like just being a functionary and kind of more servitude than pure dopiness.
Yes, and making the Politburo happy.
Yeah.
The party, the people.
So that would leave us with Eric and Arthur.
Yeah.
Boy, Eric is really a classic example here.
Yes.
Now in that episode, Arthur, I mean, you kind of bring up the car chase that was very misguided too. Yeah, I mean, I think you couldn't go wrong with either one of those.
No. I might give the edge to Eric just for being a iconic TV dope.
Yes, and you know what?
Or not iconic, just a classic kind of.
Yeah, and here's something too that might tilt in his favor: his voice.
Yes.
Don Most does a great job of playing dopey with his voice, and that really sells it in this episode as well as in all of them.
I think so.
That might put him over the top. Whereas Harold Gold, as excellent as he was, he's just more of an object of pity, kind of. And they gave him his wife, to kind of made them more sympathetic,
right?
And she was kind of dopey as him sometimes. So
yeah.
I think Eric has got to be the choice here. Yeah. When we talk it through,
there were a lot of dopes in that Streets of San Francisco episode, though.
Really, there really were. Really were. Oh, congratulations to Don Most and
yes,
for being such a dope.
All right. I'm sure that's what he wants to hear.
Okay, well, I guess this is me, I think, reading
the
next one. Okay. All right, here we have Outstanding Heel. And there could be a subtle distinction between this and Outstanding Villain. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but yeah, heel is somebody who does some bad things and is not the nicest person, but there's a difference between outright villainy. As you'll see, I think, when we go to the Outstanding Villain category. We can talk about it as we go. Unless you know.
No, I think.
Okay, I'll read the nominees here. Outstanding Heel, Kenny O'Malley for Dan August, Paul Lynde for Donnie and Marie, Mary Decker and Zola Budd for the 1984 Summer Olympics, Archie Bunker for All in the Family.
Yeah.
Rex Riley, who I believe was the sort of shady apartment resident in Streets of San Francisco. Ed and Dick for Practical Jokes. I mean, they did set up a lot of practical jokes in that show.
That's right.
And, pointing out people's foibles with the blooper segments.
Yeah.
And Dorothea Powell from The Kid with a Broken Halo. This was the June Allison character, of course.
That's right.
And last year it was Irene Tedrow for Dennis the Menace, the nemesis of Mr. Wilson.
Yeah.
It was particularly nasty to him.
Yes, she was.
Right, what do you think, Mike?
Well, the Mary Decker Zola Budd is funny, but
yeah,
and literal, meaning their heels.
Yes.
It's not very fair, as that one announcer pointed out. The day after, it was not really anyone's fault. It was just a happenstance.
Yeah, and based on precedent tonight, those heels are so intertwined that maybe they kind of cancel each other out a bit. They literally, I mean, and they
That's
certainly
right,
did in
they
the
did.
race.
Yeah.
History is repeating itself with the baddies.
Oh, no. Mary Decker's crying right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She's not here. Yeah, again, Archie he's not that much of a heel in this episode.
No.
He's almost sympathetic.
Yeah, he's sort of supporting ingrained racism.
This is true.
Which is kind of but he's not as outright mean to everybody else as he can be in other episodes.
But now that you mentioned the racism,
There's that.
there's that. Ed and Dick, I don't know. It's a little bit of a stretch.
I'd say it's all in good clean fun with them.
That's right. Yeah.
So calling them a heel is a little over the top.
I would maybe call them a heel for thinking that stuff is funny.
Yeah.
Inflicting it.
That's okay. Yeah, I can eliminate them too.
Yeah. Now, we've already praised the mixture, and I would say all of that holds up.
Yeah.
He certainly was a political operative, power hungry, and his actions indirectly led to murder.
Yes. I mean, going up to the edge of good taste and propriety, but not necessarily going to outright villainy.
That's right. Yes. Paul Lynn's character,
he's
more of a grump.
Yeah. More of a grump than a heel. I mean, because he contrasts with those two nice kids.
Yeah.
He comes off as more of a heel, but in this case, I think he, like you said, more cranky than heelish.
And Dorothea Powell, she had some okay reasons for her behavior, but certainly the way she treated Mason Adams, the way she treated her daughter, the way she treated an angel. Yeah. Until the end.
I mean, does that redemption change things?
Well, I think that's why, she's a heel and not a villain. Yeah. Because a heel, of course, can make a turn.
Yeah, that's right. She did have wide-ranging effects, right? I mean, just a lot of people were affected by her actions.
Yeah, but I would say, we didn't even talk about the Rex Riley guy.
Yeah, maybe more of a creep than a heel.
Yeah.
I mean, he's somebody that I thought at first that there was a lot worse going on there. And it turned out, probably not. And he did sort of help out in the investigation. I mean, he seemed like he, was participating a little bit more. So I would eliminate him too.
Right. So given that, even if we say Archie's still in there, I'm still, for me again, it's the mixture. Yeah. I feel like he's just such an important character to that episode, to everything that happened.
And again, it's that character kind of epitomizes what we're getting at with the category too. Yeah. And definitely, I think, stronger than the June Allison character. And Archie, there's just something, like you kind of getting at, something doesn't quite fit with the category here compared to the mixture. We got the winner right there, Kenny O'Malley.
Well, for a guy who's so into winning, he should be happy. Yeah. He's won 2 awards.
Yeah. And of course, there's the legend that the mixture was originally first choice for Archie Bunker.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes it interesting that it comes down to these two, I just realized.
But he didn't want to play it? Is that the part of the legend? Or
You know what? It's hard to tell because you just picture him turning things down. Yeah. So I'm going to go with the fact that he just turned it down.
It's hard for me to picture him playing Archie Bunker.
Yeah, especially because, supposedly, I mean, Sally Struthers just said recently that Carol O'Connor came up with the concept for the whole show. It was his idea.
Even the British version?
Yeah, well... And it
was his idea to adapt to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what she said, but she kind of said that Norman Lear took credit for a lot of that whole thing for years. But it was Carol O'Connor that really created that character. Maybe not the show, but the character of Archie.
Yeah, I think certainly the character. Or the what he became over time. But he was also sort of based on Norman Lear's dad, apparently.
Yeah. Well, at any rate.
She was there, we weren't. But congratulations to the mixture. Yeah. Kenny O'Malley.
2 awards, very nice.
So now we have outstanding villain, and these are out-and-out villains. Mm-hmm. Just malicious, out for power's sake, trying to kill children in some cases. Yes. So we have the imposter, Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island, Avenger from Dungeons and Dragons, Space Commander Travis and Servalan from Plague 7, the System from Chico and the Man, and the Kid with the Broken Halo.
Wow, double nominee for 2 different shows. That's rare.
Yes, different systems maybe. Yes. And Fred Bowers from Dan August is the killer.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty villainous.
And Lynn Chase from Streets of San Francisco, also the killer.
Again, yes. Wow. A big thing here is mass murder versus the more, specific individual murders that you build a whole episode around.
That's right.
Those sometimes hit a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And there's a danger when you're dealing with, mass murder, it becomes a little abstract,
I got to say, when you bring up murder so much there, the imposter Mr. Howell seems kind of like a lightweight.
does. Boy, he was, I think what really sells that, though, his villainy is just what an effect it had on Mr. Howe. It almost led to Mr. Howe's death by drowning.
That's multiple times.
Yeah, and just what he did with, just amalgamated.
Yes.
He was being careless with stock, but probably doesn't compare to some of these others.
Right. Venger, again, was trying to kill children and had slaves.
A literal supervillain.
Yes. Space Commander Travis, he's working for an evil empire. Mm-hmm. He's heck bent on capturing the most famous rebels out there, and he's working for Servalan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I feel like them and Venger and arguably the system overall, or especially Servalan and not so much him, have a broad effect on a lot of people, but we don't necessarily always feel that.
That's true. I mean, when you think about like on that scale, it is tough for, a couple of like just average murderers.
Yes.
For quote unquote average people driven to do
It's true.
Do bad things.
And yet, Lynn Chase, I find very detestable.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the Bowers guy is definitely makes bad choices, but I think I don't even agree with his motivation necessarily, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's sort of coming from a weird protective place, right?
Yeah, protective. And then as it went on, like you see more desperation, whereas like her reactions were more like she was surprisingly, just like not as repentant as you would expect.
I don't think she was repentant at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was cold and a liar. And,
yeah, yeah.
Her hat was possibly more evil than Servalan's hat.
Yes, that's possible. She made Carl Malden run around a whole airport.
That's right.
Yeah, she's.
I would leave her in the case, and she was successful.
Right.
I mean, one of the things, unfortunately, just because of the nature of serialized television, or not even serialized, but just of both Blake 7 and Dungeons and Dragons, is that the villains have to lose a lot.
Yeah.
Like most of the time.
Yeah. That's a good point. I would eliminate Travis because he's basically working for Servalan.
Yes.
And his villainy is more he's more like just a functionary. I mean, he's in a system, and then it becomes like this personal conflict with Blake. But Servalan's like on a whole nother level with her,
Yes.
machinations and everything. So
Yeah. Now in this particular episode, though, I don't think she does a lot.
She doesn't. No. I mean, if you were to look at this list, my favorite villain of all of them would clearly be Servalan.
Yes.
But did she do enough in this episode? Should that matter? I don't know. I mean, it's in the background, but yeah, you're right. It's not as upfront in this one.
Yeah.
Travis does have a very active role in the episode we did.
That's right. He set everything up.
Yeah, and
although she does it. I take that back because she, uses that psychic gizmo on the rebel, and that kills her. And together they force her daughter to be a traitor.
That's right. And she is the one driving a lot of, I think as far as like what to, like the consequences for people, it's pretty much her calling the shots there.
Right.
Whereas Travis, probably doesn't care so much as long as he gets his goal. And that episode had tragic consequences,
It did.
We lost one of the crew, so.
That's right. That was Travis's fault.
Yeah.
Right?
Well.
Which one threw the grenade?
See, I was thinking that just the fact of him, him getting stuck and, and sacrificing because of like the whole system.
Right.
Well,
there's a lot we haven't even talked about the system.
The trap, the fact that the whole area was kind of this fortress was, I don't know. Yeah, and the system.
Yeah. So in Chico and the Man, it was like bureaucracy.
Yeah.
In Kid with the Broken Halo, it was also bureaucracy, but it was it was a system where dead children angels could be sent to hell if they didn't behave.
Yeah, that was much of it was subtext, but it's something we did talk about.
That's right.
It was kind of like there the whole time. That was a little off-putting.
Yes. But there seemed to be some reform happening.
Yeah. The fact in both those cases, the fact that the system wasn't necessarily defeated, but sort of like you could do an end around with the system, it lessens the impact of the system in this case.
I think so.
So I think we could probably eliminate that.
Yeah.
Well, we can't eliminate the system. It's always going to be here, but we'll do our best. But for this award,
So where are we at?
Well, Venger.
Okay. So
Servalan,
we have. Okay.
And Lynn Chase, I think, maybe those three.
Ooh.
I didn't watch as much Dungeons and Dragons as I did a lot of the other stuff we did this season. But Venger is it's an actual supervillain.
He is. Yes.
So you got to give him credit for that.
And he's unrepentant.
Yeah.
And again, trying to kill children.
Yeah, like you said, loses a lot, but quite powerful. Yeah, it's very heinous. Is there any redeeming quality of Venger at all?
Not that I know of.
Lynn Chase, you could say, well, she's probably good at her job. Servalan is clever.
Yes.
She makes the trains run on time.
Venger probably does too. Yes, I don't think there are slaves, and I don't remember any slaves in Blake 7.
You could argue that maybe the mutoids are probably, it kind of goes in that. There probably is a lot of slave labor on various planets, but that's probably more part of the system,
Right.
rather than her overseeing that. Whereas Venger is really overseeing.
I don't think she would care.
Yeah, no, she wouldn't. But it's weird. Like on a personal level, you make a good point about that. Lynn Chase, that character was cold as ice, but so is Servalan. I don't know. I can't. It's tough for me to vote for Lynn Chase against like two larger scale villains in this case, like Venger and Servalan.
Okay.
And I must admit, Servalan, I'm really heavily influenced by the series as a whole, but I do think she did enough in that episode to win. But so did Venger probably, too. But Servalan, okay, here's something I'm going to say for Servalan.
Okay.
We actually have a body count in Blake 7, whereas Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, yeah, people don't die in Dungeons.
No, they don't.
That's true. They just live miserable lives.
Yeah, so it's bad, but that might be a knock against Venger in this category.
Well, I think you swayed me.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you're not using a brainwashing machine on me.
No, I'm not doing any Gary Coleman mind tricks either. All right, well, that's
Yes. And season 11, Larry Hagman won as JR in Dallas.
oof, that's a classic villain.
Yes, I'd hate to see him and Servalan run into each other.
Ooh.
The trouble they could cause.
It could have had the timeline would have worked, Well, not the storyline timeline, of course, but
Right.
in TV. Okay, well, all right. Shall we move on to next category?
Yes.
All right, this is another one of our favorites here. Outstanding non-human, and get ready, we got a lot in this one. Okay, we've got from The Kid with a Broken Halo, Michael, I believe is the Ray Walston character, and Blake.
That's the Robert Guillaume character.
Yes. From Dungeons and Dragons, we have the Dungeon Master and Uni, adorable unicorn. Okay, from Sesame Street, Zen from Blake 7.
Confirmed.
Yes, thank you. From Sesame Street, Kermit the Frog, Cookie Monster, Grover, Bert, Ernie, Count Von Count, all from Sesame Street.
Yeah.
The Alien Visitor from the 1984 Olympics closing ceremonies.
Yeah.
And the Bathtub from Chico and the Man. And for a little context, last season, the Littlest Hobo won.
Oh, yeah.
This category. Animals traditionally do very well in this
Animals
category.
do well. That's true. Well, we do have a frog and a and a unicorn.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Yes, so Michael and Blake are angels. They might have been human at one point. Well, Blake. I mean, Michael is the archangel. Michael, I believe, is canonically just an angel.
Yeah.
Yes. And Dungeon Master is something.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Zen is a computer. Kermit, etc. are Muppets. Alien Visitor is an alien. Bathtub is a bathtub.
That is true. I think part of the essence of Kid with a Broken Halo is that we're learning some lessons about humanity in there, for what that's worth.
Are we learning any about non-humanity?
I don't know.
I think the non-humans are finding their humanity.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Does that make them any less non-human? Maybe it does.
I mean, Gary Coleman never lost his.
I don't think he did, no. He didn't.
But I don't know. We don't know. Blake might have been. This is confusing. We should have had a best Blake category.
Yeah.
He might have been, a stick in the mud in real life. Although enough of a romantic to be in love with Dorothea Powell.
Yeah. Definitely infatuated by her. That was interesting, yeah. Because that was like the little sort of almost a touch of humanity to that character.
That's right.
Before, we really got into the story, there was that. The Dungeon Master to me is more enigmatic than outstanding. I don't know if I could give him too much credit.
He does look good on a snail.
Yeah.
And Uni is mostly just kind of there for the little children watching.
Right.
Although she does, help out in this episode by distracting all those orcs.
Yeah, that's true.
Kicking food everywhere. Yes, Zen is, Zen is Zen.
Yeah, a very Zen statement of you.
Thank you. He's entertaining the Muppet. That's tough. I love
really
them all.
is. With Bert and Ernie, I mean, they kind of like pair each other. Kermit had a really outstanding episode.
He did, yes.
Multiple, several segments where I really enjoyed Kermit's work. I mean,
and Grover had a classic moment. I mean, he had the banjo, but he had the peanut butter thing.
That's right. Yeah, and Grover helped that one of those Kermit segments. Wasn't the one of the difference between?
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
yeah. He was great in that too.
Yeah,
and it was an interesting Kermit.
Yes,
because he was more the troublemaker.
Yes, he was. Yeah, it was different shadings of Kermit in that episode.
Yeah, and the count is a count.
Yeah, love the count.
Love the count. That's tough. Maybe we should have had an outstanding Muppet.
Yeah, now that you mention it.
I'm sorry to keep questioning the Blue Ribbon Committee, but now this alien visitor, he made a great impression on us.
Really did.
And Peter Jennings and Jim McKay.
Yeah, just brought such awe.
Yes.
In an already massive spectacle.
Right.
I mean, what else could close the ceremony and,
I
not be
know.
a disappointment?
Right, you think Lionel Richie and 100 breakdancers, that would be enough. But then you get an alien.
Yeah, just
like a 7-foot alien.
really epitomizes the whole bravura job by Peter Ueberroth, David Wolper, and everybody that put together those games, right?
That's right,
That
yeah.
they managed to close it on such a awe-inspiring note.
Yes, and I'm sure they're working hand in hand with Roone Arledge.
Yes, of course. Of course. I mean, when you can stun jaded newsmen like Jim McKay and Peter
Yeah.
Jennings who've seen it all,
Right.
that says something, doesn't it?
And the bathtub. I mean, the bathtub was an effective bathtub.
It was, yeah.
It was a good plot point. I think the timer is already going off. We should start eliminating some things.
Okay, well,
And the bathtub would be the first.
okay, that's fair enough. I would eliminate the kid with the broken halo nominees just because there's just so much ambiguity with their humanity and non-humanity.
And you've already made your feelings about Dungeon Master clear.
Yeah, and I would eliminate Uni too.
Yeah.
Zen, love Zen. I can't really remember anything notable Zen did in that episode.
No. He got them out of there at standard by 10 at the end. But
Yes. I think Zen is more of a slow build character.
Yeah.
That as you watch the show, you appreciate Zen more and more as opposed to any one episode, especially in that second season, I think it was we did.
Yeah.
So eliminate Zen. I would leave it to, the Muppets and the Alien Visitor.
Yeah. All the Muppets were good.
It is tough. I don't want to just give a blanket,
In general, like you said, Bert and Ernie are a duo, but yeah, I mean, Bert was the star of that segment.
he was the star of the episode.
Yes.
You couldn't have that episode and that whole, and as we mentioned, that was an episode, right, where it strung together the whole thing. It was a notable episode.
Yeah.
Because they had a story that could carry
Right.
continuous 20 minutes or whatever.
Yes. And he had an emotional arc.
Yeah. And he did. We often get into the trap of thinking, not trap, but we often think, they'll be nominated later. But in this case, I don't think we can rule him out.
No, I don't think so. I don't remember exactly what the Cookie Monster segment was.
Oh, there was a segment with a little girl where she was crying.
Oh, yeah, and he shared. Yeah, that was a nice segment.
Yeah.
And then, they both gobbled down the cookies.
I'll say this: if it's going to be a Muppet,
Yeah.
it can't be It wouldn't be Count and Cookie because although they did what they needed to do, they just didn't have as much to do as these
Yeah.
other ones in that episode. So I would eliminate Count and Cookie.
Yeah.
Grover, to me, Kermit was more effective than Grover if I had to pick, and Bert was more. So I'd probably eliminate Grover too.
Okay.
And
yeah.
Ernie.
I mean, he was important. He was funny, but everyone else was kind of fulfilling that role too.
Yeah, that's right. That's very true. Like the humans were sort of needling Bert in a way
Yeah.
that Ernie usually does.
That's right.
I mean, you could have done that whole segment without Ernie, as strange as it is. I mean, Ernie's starting
Yes,
it.
right.
But once they started it, he wasn't as essential.
I would say that leaves us with Kermit, Bert, and the alien visitor.
Yeah. I like the Alien Visitor was impressive, but I would have liked to have seen the Alien Visitor do just a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah.
It was like just showing up was enough. It did have an impact.
I certainly liked his message of hope.
Yeah.
I don't feel like his prediction of the future was particularly accurate, but
No.
but they're watching us, right? That was
They
part
are,
of it,
yes.
yeah.
Well, I'd put it this way. This might be unfair. Once the Alien Visitor appeared, I think the Visitor itself kind of phoned it in a little bit. So I would give that the credit more to like David Wolper. It's more of a production and spectacle thing as opposed to drilling down to the actual performance of the Alien Visitor.
Yeah.
So since it's so close, I would eliminate the Alien Visitor for that reason.
Well, it was a good episode for Kermit, but like you said, it was Bert's episode.
It was, and as a for a non-human,
Yeah.
Bert's pretty human, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to in his favor here.
Yeah, and just to clarify, in case anyone, we're counting. I mean, Bert and Ernie are human-like Muppets, but they are Muppets.
Yes.
So that's
As
why
performers, they're not human. Yes.
That's right.
All right, so we're going with Bert.
All right.
Well done.
Well done. Yes.
that's good.
Boy, if his unibrow had been in best facial hair,
Yeah, that would have made a difficult thing even more difficult. Well, whose turn is it here?
it is mine.
Okay.
Right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Outstanding duo: Bert and Ernie, Dottie and Marie, Chico and the Man, Ed and Dick,
Wow.
Stone and Keller,
Oh.
Rhoda and Joe,
Oh.
and the Howls.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
All right.
And last year, Sonny and Cher won.
Yes, last year the listeners voted for this one.
That's
this
right.
year we got the hard task. All right. I'm going to just go ahead and start eliminating here.
Okay.
The Howls are a great duo, but this is a very strong category. Very strong category.
Uh-huh.
I think Rhoda and Joe go very well together, but as we got into in great detail, the series kind of killed them
Yeah.
as an outstanding duo. What might have been? What might have been? Okay, well, now it gets more difficult. Bert and Ernie, Donnie and Marie classics. Chico and the Man classic. Chico and the Man, as we again discussed their potential that was, I think you'd have to say, was largely unfulfilled. They were great in this episode. They were a great pair. I mean, we talked about how the two of them work so great together. So I'm hesitant to just eliminate them.
I was less high on the show, but
Yeah.
I do agree that they were great together.
I think for that reason, I think we could probably eliminate them.
Okay.
Because Chico and the Man is just not on the level of some of the other shows we've discussed. And similarly, well, not similarly, but Ed McMahon and Dick Clark, they're an outstanding duo, but there's just something so artificial about them, which is intentional. But I don't think they go in the same category with these classic duos.
Okay.
Of Donnie and Marie, Bert and Ernie, and Michael Douglas and Carl Malden, Stone and Keller. I mean, this is kind of a low-key, under-the-radar outstanding duo, but they're great. We just talked about how great their partnership was and how much we love their chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to eliminate them either.
No.
I think it's between Bert and Ernie, Donnie and Marie, and probably Stone and Keller.
Yeah, I agree. And Bert and Ernie are, classic comedy duo, the uptight guy and the the relaxed guy.
Right.
That's awesome. Donnie and Marie, brother and sister. And yeah, as we said, they're pros.
Right.
And their chemistry seems real.
It does.
Even though it is a fake environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Stone and Keller are great too.
Now, here's one thing that might help us out here a little bit.
Okay.
Donnie and Marie did have success independently of each other.
That's true.
Stone and Keller, now once you broke them up and you introduced Richard Hatch,
Yeah.
I mean, the show is just not as memorable.
Right.
I mean, it has a big difference too. Whereas Bert and Ernie, despite what we just said in that last segment about how Ernie was not as essential, I mean,
Inseparable.
the whole situation is based on their being a duo.
Yeah. I mean, there are times in Sesame Street's history, certainly where Ernie has been without Bert.
Yeah.
The Journey to Ernie segments.
Right. Yeah, that's a little bit different than Donnie having like a solo career and Marie having like her own talk show. They're still essentially part of the same ecosystem, Bert and Ernie.
Yes, I think Ernie was just off having some fun.
Yeah. If
Well, Bert-
Ernie had gone and joined the cast of like Electric Company,
Yeah.
that would be
Right.
kind of a different thing.
That would be weird.
Yeah. It would, wouldn't it?
So it really comes down to comedy duo or dramatic duo.
Yeah.
Friendship or partnership. Getting along or getting along in spite of your differences.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we talked about as I kind of talked through this on Streets of San Francisco. Remember, we talked about how it's almost surprising that they do get along. Like early, Michael Douglas and Carl Malden's characters get along and like each other much earlier than you would expect. And,
Yeah.
and I've, because I read the book where the relationship is is much different. It was surprising that right away, there's not as much contrast between. I mean, there's the natural contrast, but there's not as much tension between the two as you think. It's more like easygoing, like kidding and stuff. But I don't know if that helps. Bert and Ernie have more tension between them than.
Oh, yeah.
Than,
Totally. That's who I meant by getting along despite their differences.
Yeah. I mean, they live together. Michael Douglas and Carl Malden's character, they don't live together. There's sort of that. I don't know. I mean, I will say this too. You want Michael Douglas and Carl Malden. There's episodes I've seen where they're sort of working independently, but you want them to come together, and it's like you want them to talk about the cases that they're working on. You want them to come together at the end.
Yeah.
Bert and Ernie, you did mention they work a little bit more easier independently of each other for what that's worth. I don't want to penalize them for that.
No.
But that is a fact, I think. That you can see, you have more segments. Ernie can sing about, being on the moon or whatever without Bert.
Oh, yeah.
Rubber Ducky is not, Bert.
And Bert can do the pigeon.
Yep. I feel like making that line of argument is penalizing them for being
Right.
such versatile performers, but
Yeah.
I'm trying here. This is a tough call.
Well, and it's interesting. It's like you said, you want Stone and Keller to come together, but as an audience member, really, you don't want Bert and Ernie to get along.
No.
It's not as fun.
Yeah.
It always kind of works out in the end, but
Yeah. This very podcast,
yes,
our relationship is built on cooperation.
that's right.
It's built on friendship, not tension.
That's true.
It's built on, cooperation, working together.
And one of us is named Mike, and my brother's name is Steve.
Yeah.
I don't think I mentioned that on Streets of San Francisco. But,
No, wow. Well, we did really enjoy Streets of San Francisco.
we did. Yes, I'm willing to give it to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I think that's legitimate.
I'm sorry, Ernie, that Bert won an award and you didn't. But
Yeah.
you're a good-natured guy.
Yeah, hopefully you can just chuckle that or snicker that off,
Okay. Ooh, I don't even know. I don't know the result of this next one.
Oh, okay. Well, this is one of our 2 listener awards we have. So thanks to everybody that voted by email or our Facebook group, the website. There are all 3 ways that you could vote for this. And let's remind everybody, join our Facebook group if you'd like, hang out there, and mailbag@battleofthenetworkshows.com if you want to reach us, or you can, leave comments on our website, which is battleofthenetworkshows.com.
That's right.
Okay, this one was Outstanding Bert or Bert. That's B-U-R-T or B-E-R-T. And we had 3 choices in this. Burt Reynolds from Dan August.
Yeah.
Burt Mustin, who was a guest star on Rhoda. And Bert from Sesame Street, who we talked about.
That's right.
Mike, I have the results here.
Yes.
Are you ready for this?
I am.
there was a tie.
What?
We had a dead tie
Oh, no.
between Burt Reynolds and Bert from Sesame Street.
Whoa.
Sorry, Burt Mustin, he was not shut out, but the other two, when all the votes were tallied, we had a dead tie.
Wow.
Between, two of the three Burts.
Well, we're going to have to go to the random number generator, which I believe caused some controversy in the past with listener ones. But as we say, there are multiple venues for...
This is the only fair way to decide it, in my opinion.
That's right.
When it's this close, you've got to do it with a random number generator. That's the way the universe wants it to happen.
Okay, so I need the starting number.
62.
And need the maximum number.
317.
317. Okay, go. Oh, wait.
Well, okay.
Before I hit go, which... We always make this mistake.
Yes, okay. Bert from Sesame Street, odd. Because he's very odd.
Yes.
And Burt Reynolds, even, because, has there been anybody who's even done as close to what Burt Reynolds has done for show business?
Okay. Well, that didn't work. Generate. 65.
65. That means it's Bert from Sesame Street.
Whoa. What a day for Bert from Sesame Street.
Oh, my gosh.
Nominee in 3 categories. Winner in 2.
Wow.
Congratulations, Bert.
Yes, and thank you to the listeners. And I hope nobody thinks that, your voice mattered here.
Yes.
But, this is a very difficult choice for everybody.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I'm glad the listeners had to grapple with this.
I am too. Yeah, that very much.
Wow.
And, Bert will be sending you a commemorative bottle cap.
Yes. And Burt Reynolds, he could get a commemorative Florida State cap.
Sure.
I think he would enjoy that. He's
ball cap, you said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the day he doesn't have to wear his rug.
Yeah.
Well, that was exciting. The next is one of 3 musical categories. This is Outstanding Theme Song with Lyrics. All in the Family, Donnie and Marie end song.
Well, I believe that's the May Tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of their theme song.
Chico and the Man, Gilligan's Island, and Sesame Street. Oof, this is going to be another tough one.
Sure is. So last season, Littlest Hobo won.
Yes.
I know that's a beloved, cherished theme song, but boy.
I know.
You look at that one, you look at these ones and you think, man.
Right. I mean, I think you have 3 stone cold classics.
Yeah.
And Chico and the Man, I would say, is an underdog compared to those.
But
Donnie and Marie, I would eliminate.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Not a true theme song.
Yeah.
Kind of there. Okay. Chico and the Man it did have crossover appeal. It was I believe it charted.
That's right. And Sammy covered it, right?
Yeah. All in the Family had the characters singing it, of course.
Yes.
Which is always a plus.
Right. And I might have said this on the episode, but I had always been under the impression that it was an existing song.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, they just, they had the sheet music. They're singing it, but it wasn't. But it was a perfect song for that show.
Right. And let's face it, Gilligan's Island is one of the most famous theme songs of all time.
Yes.
And it's iconic. I mean, it tells the whole story of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And, we talked about Chico and the Man and the kind of coolness of the singer addressing Chico. And, and then Sesame Street, of course, everyone knows that song, too.
Yeah. Now, Sesame Street, it fills your heart with love and
yes.
happiness, but I would probably eliminate it.
Okay.
I'm going to be cold right away.
All right.
Eliminate that one. Which gives us All in the Family,
yeah.
Chico and the Man, Gilligan's Island. Okay, as a song, I think I like Chico and the Man best.
Yeah.
However, it's tough for me I don't like it enough to vote it over 2 classic theme songs like that.
I'm finding it very difficult to vote for anything but Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. I mean, boy, we'd really hear it if we didn't vote for Gilligan's Island, wouldn't we?
We would.
Gilligan's Island, of course, our retro,
yes.
Silver Age, however you want to call it, show this season. Had a lot of fun with it. I mean, Gilligan's Island is the classic example of a theme song. I mean, I do enjoy All in the Family, that performance. But yeah, I think we have to go with Gilligan's Island.
I think we do too. Yeah, and it has the added bonus of having that first season version.
Yes. So a little bit of controversy adds a little spice.
Yeah. All right. That was a quick decision.
Okay. Well, that leads us to Outstanding Theme Song as an Instrumental.
Ooh.
All right. So we have the end theme of All in the Family.
Okay.
The 1984 Summer Olympics.
Uh-huh.
The Olympic theme there. Dan August.
Yeah.
Ooh. Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous by Come With Me Now by Bill Conti. Rhoda.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons. Practical Jokes and Bloopers. Or is that Bloopers and Practical Jokes? That's Practical
TV's
Jokes.
Bloopers and Practical
TV's
Jokes.
Bloopers and Practical Jokes. Blake 7.
Ooh.
And the Streets of San Francisco.
Oh.
Have at it, Mike. Last year's winner was Dallas.
Yes.
However, it was determined by a random number generator because we couldn't choose between Dallas and Night Court.
That's right. Okay. I have 2 I'm going to knock out right away.
Okay.
Lifestyles, because I believe it was written, it was an extant piece.
Fair enough. I think the music is definitely associated with the show, but that's a fair assessment.
Right. And we didn't get into this on the show, the episode, but I really don't like the roto music. As much as I like the show, I find it very strange. It has nothing to do with the show. It's like, I don't know, like a circus music on LSD or something.
Yes,
It's just weird.
Yeah.
I like her narrating the opening.
Yeah, this is your last chance.
Yeah, that, but then it's...
It's memorable, but it's not a great theme song.
No.
Yes, easy elimination.
And Dungeons & Dragons also was more end.
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
it's cool.
I love that music, but
Yeah.
the fact that if it was used more prominently, I feel like they kind of shunted off to the end credits there. I love that as a piece of music, but it's not enough to win this award.
Yeah. Bloopers, I don't really remember what the music...
I think it's kind of obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like Rhoda is.
Yes.
It's like brassy and it's like just like blatantly, just kind of like. I think obnoxious is probably. I think that's probably my best way of putting it.
Yeah.
I would not vote for it here.
The All in the Family end music, I'm kind of having trouble remembering that.
Kind of an old timey saloon music.
Okay. Yeah.
I always like that.
It's okay. Yeah.
I always like that, but again, it's just not. It can't compete. It's not heavyweight enough.
Yeah.
Not prominent enough.
I mean, that Olympics music by John Williams is really cool.
Yeah, but do you really think of it as a TV theme?
No, I think of it
I
as
mean,
an
a lot of
Olympics theme.
times, yeah. I mean, you probably would hear it like maybe at the end of the night on ABC's coverage, but
Yeah, and it wasn't really. I mean, it was written for the event.
yeah.
Like the Olympics themselves.
True.
It was played in the stadium by an orchestra or
And
whatever.
somewhat upstaged by Lionel Richie too at the end.
Well.
No real shame in that. But
Yes, yeah, and this is, I mean, to me, it comes down to these three. Anyway, Dan August, Blake Seven, Streets of San Francisco.
I agree.
All awesome.
I agree. The Quinn Martin shows.
Yeah, they might be canceling each other out.
Yeah.
I don't even know which one I would choose.
Okay, Dan August definitely sounds like Dan August is like quintessential cop show music.
Yeah.
But Streets of San Francisco is just so much more distinctive. I think it kind of helps like that show stand out from other cop shows, which is
Yeah.
why I like that so much.
Right.
So if it were between those two, I would pick Streets of San Francisco, but I
Yeah,
could see an argument
I could
for
see
either
that.
one.
Yeah.
However.
I have more of the Dan August in my head right now, but that's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. We both watched a lot of Dan August.
Yes, I can see that. And we also watched a lot of Blake Seven.
Blake Seven is probably my choice, Mike.
Yeah.
The majesty of it.
Yes.
Of all the things that seemed low budget on that show, and there are many,
Uh-huh.
the theme song, I believe, is not one of them.
That's correct.
Dudley Simpson and the BBC orchestra, whoever it was,
Yeah.
they outdid themselves in that. I love that music.
That's and I don't know if this was influenced by Star Wars, but the fact that they went in a different direction than Doctor Who with a more kind of classical piece than that electronic thing. So yeah, Mocha. I know you like Streets of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm good. Blake Seven.
We love like in an era of that sort of majestic science fiction with Star
Yeah.
Wars, Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
That theme. Blake Seven does what it gets me excited to watch the show.
Yeah.
So that's
Which the other ones do too. But
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we mentioned Dallas one. Okay.
Okay. Outstanding song is yours.
No, it's yours.
Didn't I just do outstanding theme song instrumental?
No, I did. Wait, you did. That's right, you did.
Have you
We're
been
already-
into the the still
Yeah.
the cash register over in the office?
Maybe it's the gasoline fumes. Okay, outstanding song. All Night Long from the 1984 Olympics. I Just Want to Celebrate from Donnie and Marie. John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. What's the name of that song?
Oh.
I'm Going Somewhere and Sing from Sesame Street.
Ugh.
Well, that is a category. Last year, the Roots of Rock and Roll medley by Chubby Checker from the big 4th of July. America Celebrates America from
Yes.
St. Louis with Oprah and Bob.
Yeah.
I was going to say Bob Uecker, Bob Urich.
Yes. And Yakov Smirnoff.
And Yakov Smirnoff, yes.
Okay. Well.
And literacy.
Yes, and literacy. What a dichotomy here between songs that were effective but not really original for the productions, which isn't
Right.
necessarily. I mean, we're talking about variety shows in this, so it's not necessarily
Yeah.
usual.
I mean, Chubby Checker won for a medley.
Yes, and songs that are annoying. Okay, the Bob song from Sesame Street, I don't remember that as much as the other ones. That was part of one of his songs. I would eliminate that.
Yeah, okay.
I Just Want to Celebrate. I believe they did that. That was like the big opening number
Yeah.
in the Donnie and Marie show, and I think they did a version of it later too.
Yeah, ice skating.
That's not one of my favorite songs, honestly. I never
No.
really did care for that in any version.
No.
So, nice try, but
If this were the weird commercial for John Jacob Gleimer Schmidt, I still would not vote for it.
Yeah, on principle, I don't think I can vote for that.
No.
What's the name of that song?
That's an earworm.
It was really kind of that was the arguably the main song until kind of near the end.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Bert and Ernie sing at the beginning, but once they got it into that, I mean, it brought Mr. Hooper into it. Mm-hmm. Just everybody was kind of like participating, and Sing from Sesame Street. They didn't really.
It was just sort of.
There was a little bit of an afterthought in that segment, huh?
Yeah, I think if this had been like if they'd had the the Carpenters version play in a segment or something maybe, but it was just sort of melded into things.
Yeah, as much as I enjoy it, I think in this circumstance, I don't know if we can vote for that here.
Yeah.
So I would eliminate that too.
Yes.
And what about speak to us about Lionel Richie's performance of All Night Long?
I mean, it's live. Mm-hmm. It wrote special lyrics for it.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
He's given it his all on top of like a 20-foot star.
Yes.
There's 100 breakdancers. Not necessarily, they're not singing, but they're contributing to the overall event.
Right. The mood and everything.
Yes. I believe, was the next thing that springboarded him to even gianter celebrity.
He took an established song, hit, and took it up another level.
Yes.
For the grand stage and that huge occasion. Yeah. He's got to get a lot of credit for that.
I think so.
It was a showstopper.
It was, yeah.
And what's the name of that song is just too annoying to.
It really, I mean.
To reward, I think.
When I first got here and I was glancing at the list, I saw that in the list and immediately it was in my head.
Yeah, and it doesn't. All Night Long is easy to get in your head, but in a kind of a more benign way, though.
Yeah, right.
And I'm thinking about it more now. Thinking about it, and like you said, like the whole performance and what an accomplishment it was to really and the jubilation of that song and that performance. I mean, just take it and it's kind of surprising actually, Mike. I guess maybe it's a testament to how popular the song was and what a career Lionel Richie has that you don't necessarily associate that more with the 1984 Olympics. Like now that I think about it, every time we hear that song, we should be thinking of the 1984 Summer Olympics. Yeah. Maybe we will now that we've done it on the podcast. Maybe people will.
And for us personally, it also brought us the joy because that music was still playing. I mean, he wasn't singing anymore, but of Peter and Jim broadcasting about breakdancing.
Yes. It was like thematic because that telecast seemed to go on forever.
Yeah, right.
Just all night long, and just like the credits alone, seemed to go all night long.
Right, and even we already said that that alien was cool, but did the alien really top All Night Long?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right,
that.
Hey, All Night Long, Lionel Richie.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have a Tony. I don't know if he has an Emmy either, but he's at least a BGO.
Yes,
or a BOG.
Yeah. yeah. I'll have to look into that. He should have an Emmy. He's done enough on television.
I mean, I'm sure
he's been on our podcast before.
Yeah. He might have an Emmy for some performance. Maybe he got one for this.
I don't think he's got a Tony. I'm pretty sure he does not have a Tony. He might have an Emmy.
Yeah, I bet they're working on a jukebox.
Yeah. Yep.
Whether it ever happens, I don't know.
And it would be called All Night Long, probably.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
Yep. All Night Long, the music and career of Lionel Richie.
Yes.
An American story. Quintessentially American. Yeah. All right. Well, wow, that's great.
Okay.
Man, music is always a big part of the Baddies.
Yes.
And you know what else is a big part of the Baddies? Acting.
That's true.
And we're about to get into some of the great acting categories. I'll kick it off with Outstanding Supporting Female.
Okay.
I'm going to change things up. Last year was won by Marsha Warfield from Night Court. This year's nominees are Julie Kavner for Rhoda, Nancy Walker for Rhoda, Ina Hartman for Dan August, Maria for Sesame Street, Jan Chappell for Blake 7, Callie, and Sally Struthers for All in the Family.
Okay. Well, I would say Ina Hartman and Jan Chappell we could go ahead and eliminate. Ina Hartman because in the entire series of Dan August, she only had one episode where she did anything other than serve him coffee.
Yes.
Nothing against her performance.
Yes.
It's the show's fault.
I agree 100%.
And Callie on that episode didn't really do anything.
No. And the show in general, the series seemed to have troubles figuring out what to do with it.
She did have some featured episodes, but they were all kind of weird.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, totally if we had done the one where she had the dual role,
right,
I think she would be in contention.
Yeah. It was a rare dual role. I was very surprised to see that. I think that only happened 3 or 4 times on Blake 7. And the two from Rhoda are both great. I can't. I know you were not as big a fan of the Brenda character, but they're great supporting characters. Yes.
So I don't know what to say about that. Maria she was in the main story, and then she was narrated the fairy tale story.
I'm not sure Maria was strong enough to this particular.
I don't think so.
But
she deserves some sort of lifetime achievement.
Yes. A lot of us loved watching Maria on Sesame Street. Yes. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
No offense, Maria. And Sally Struthers.
Yeah, I don't know. She didn't have much more to do than Meathead did.
No.
She gave him the satchel.
This is where we get that. She was reacting a little bit, but not as much.
Yeah.
She had her own episodes, but this is where we get that dichotomy of like the body of work versus what they do in this specific episode.
Right.
If we're doing it for this specific episode, which we often, I think, is usually kind of what we go towards, it's tough to vote for her.
Yeah.
I agree. It seems tough to dismiss her, but you know.
Now, this is tough. Because if we give it to Brenda, then her mom is going to guilt trip her about it.
That's right. Yeah.
But if we give it to her mom, Brenda is going to feel inadequate.
Yeah. Can't win for losing. Can't lose for winning.
I
Okay.
feel like Rhoda.
Yes. This is quite a dilemma, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, my initial thought here is that
I got to think about the episode.
anytime, just Nancy Walker can steal any scene, of course.
Yes.
And just her reactions to this, I mean, and there was her height,
Yes.
playing off. She had more to do in this episode, I think.
She did, yes.
And plus, she was in the scenes where, I mean, her and her husband are giving the trip.
Right.
They gave the honeymoon. So
Yeah.
she definitely had a lot more to do.
I mean, Rhoda and Brenda had a scene together.
Yeah.
It was just one of those nice scenes between them.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like when they first saw their stateroom and just the facial expressions alone.
Yes.
Like Nancy Walker was able to do a lot with very little. I would lean towards her.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not anything anti-Brenda, just I think in this episode. It's
Right.
definitely not a Brenda-centric episode. I think whenever there's not a Brenda-centric episode, it's much easier for just Nancy Walker to come in and kind of get the spotlight. And I think she probably did in this one if I had to pick between the two.
I can do that.
And that's I guess that's kind of our job here. is to pick
Yes.
between them.
Did Nancy Walker...
For McMillan and White?
Yeah, did she win?
I don't know.
I don't think she did.
I don't believe she did. I can't remember who else was in contention. We'll look that up, of course.
Yeah,
But
of course.
okay, Nancy Walker then?
Yeah.
All right.
We really need to keep the encyclopedia of Batty winners
Yeah.
on hand.
Yes.
Available now.
Ideally,
We say it's a subscription thing. We'll send you it's a binder,
Yeah.
and we send a new sheet every year every season
Yeah,
to add to your binder.
fill up the binder. Yeah.
Okay. So now we go on to Outstanding Supporting Man.
Oh boy.
Yes. Last year's winner, also from Night Court, John Larroquette, who did not let us know in time that he didn't want to be nominated.
Yes. As far as we're concerned, he accepted the award and
That's
enjoyed
right.
it.
We have, from Kid with the Broken Halo, 3 nominees: Robert Guillaume, Mason Adams, and George Sanford Brown. Of course, as Rudy Desautels.
wow.
From All in the Family, Rob Reiner. From Dan August, Norman Fell. Harold Gould from Rhoda. Richard Masur from Rhoda.
Wow.
Scatman Crothers from Chico and the Man. Jim Backus and
Russell Johnson.
Russell Johnson. From Gilligan's Island, and David Jackson for Blake 7, and Bob Gordon and David from Sesame Street.
Wow, boy.
Oof.
I don't know if we could fit all these nominees in the garage here, actually. We'd have to, have some of them wait upstairs, I think.
Well, luckily, Robert Guillaume's character is an angel, so he can be incorporeal, I think.
I know I'm supposed to kind of start. Okay, I will. We got to make tough choices. Your twin, Richard Masur, I think we can eliminate him.
Yes, I think
Nick
we can.
Lobo, makes an impression, but not a whole lot to do here.
Yeah.
David Jackson for Blake 7, Gann, I'm going to eliminate him too, I think.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it
Because
was
it's such a
his
strong
big
category.
moment.
I think even he would say, the character didn't have a lot of showcase moments. What few, he did have a few of them here, but come on, it's just such a tough category. Bob Gordon and David, as much as we love them, they cancel each other out in this because they're basically confined to the one segment. Rob Reiner, we've already talked about it wasn't a meathead episode.
Right.
It's a tough one, but I would eliminate Rob Reiner. Russell Johnson for Gilligan's Island. I would leave Jim Backus because it was such a tour de force and a rare duel.
Rare duel.
But I think the professor, I think we can eliminate him. Huh? George Stanford Brown, who did he play again?
Rudy Desautels.
Can you say that one more time?
Rudy Desautels.
Thank you. I appreciate. I just wanted to hear that name
He didn't appear.
a couple of times.
Did say it 3 times.
I would eliminate Tim and probably Mason Adams too. If I'm going to vote anybody in that category from that movie, it's going to be Robert
Yeah,
Guillaume.
Mason Adams was good, though. In that.
He was very good. Norman Fell for Dan August. I'm not ready to eliminate him, but this wasn't. We love him in Dan August, but it's not classic Norman Fell.
Yeah.
And in that episode, he didn't have. It was typical for what the show did with him.
Right. I mean, he was. A lot of people could play that role.
Yes.
As effectively, I think.
Yeah. By contrast, Scatman Crothers didn't have a whole lot to do in Chico and the Man episode,
No.
but what he did, you remember it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was notable, for his couple of just being in the
nobody could do what Scatman Crothers did.
right. So I would leave him in there. And Harold Gould for Rhoda, I would probably eliminate him too.
Yeah.
Very good on the show, likable, but not a whole lot in that episode.
And and his character is mostly a straight man.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
So that leaves us with Robert Guillaume for Kid with a Broken Halo, Scatman Crothers for Chico and the Man, and Jim Backus for Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, that's still a pretty heavy duty category.
It really is. Scatman, of course, we had in Love Boat a while ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's right now. It's hard for me to vote against Backus in this, just because of the whole thing.
Yeah.
The rare dual role.
Yeah.
Mr. Howell losing his
Yes.
marbles.
That's
a
right.
little
Yeah.
bit.
I think we talked about just how hilarious that character is
Yes.
in general. In this episode, he delivers.
Yeah.
And we've talked before in these categories about like who supports whom the
Right.
best. In this, I mean, you don't have to be a sidekick or a secondary. This is a spotlight episode for him,
Yes.
but he just makes everybody else funnier around him. Like we talked about like the scene where Gilligan is running into the ocean about him. I mean, that gives Gilligan a great scene because of like he just makes everybody else better in this episode, I think.
And he even gets to support himself.
Yeah, well, that's tough to vote against that, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Guillaume, of course, a pro as always. This is not fair. Maybe I thought his character in the baseball movie was more interesting.
Yes.
And therefore his work in it was better. And this character is, while having some qualities maybe you could associate with Benson, is not as withering. As Benson.
Yeah.
I think he's not quite superfluous, but he's not.
No, and part of me kind of resents the fact that he's supporting Gary Coleman in this.
Yeah.
As much as we love Gary Coleman, it's like, Robert Guillaume is a cool enough character, a cool enough actor that
Right.
why is he playing second fiddle to Gary Coleman? It's a great partnership, don't get me wrong, but I think in the back of my mind, part of me resents that a little bit, and it makes it difficult for me to vote for him for this category.
I love Scatman, but
We all love Scatman, but this just isn't enough to win this category, I think, over Jim Backus.
No, all right.
Yeah, Jim Backus. Ooh, well, that was actually, this is the thing about the baddies. When you actually use reason and logic and talk things through, some of these impossible choices become, I don't want to say easy, but they make sense at least.
Right, yeah.
All right, well, this is an interesting category, Mike. Outstanding guest performer.
Ooh.
So this is somebody who's, a guest star, not necessarily a regular. Okay, so we got Mickey Rooney, the Mixter, for Dan August. David Soul for Dan August. We haven't mentioned him, but he's prominent in that. Burt Mustin came up earlier for Rhoda. Billy D. Williams for Dan August. Harrison Ford for Dan August. Milton Berle for Donnie and Marie. Penny Marshall for Chico and the Man. Ralph Manza for Chico and the Man.
Yeah.
Harold Gold for The Streets of San Francisco. Michael Lerner for The Streets of San Francisco. And Barbara Baxley for The Streets of San Francisco. Ooh.
Oh, boy.
Wow, he got some work here, Mike.
Well, I think Lando and Han, Billy D and Harrison Ford, I think we can eliminate them.
Yeah, that's
Not the best work by either.
as much as we love seeing them.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a delight seeing them pop up at the beginning, but yes.
And also Milton Berle. I mean, clearly George Gobel made a bigger impression on us. And Milton Berle was really, he was doing what he does.
Yeah, I mean, that he could have been nominated for performances oneself.
Yes.
But yeah, there's nothing by 1977 or whatever. There wasn't much special about a Milton Berle guest shot, was there?
Michael Lerner, I think.
I have to go back and look. Excuse me, the Chips episode. I don't know if Milton Berle was nominated for guest performance or maybe as oneself. But I believe this is the second time he's been nominated for essentially for playing himself.
Yes, I think probably.
Second time he's lost.
Yes. Yeah, Michael Lerner, I think we can. Very small role.
Yeah.
It was surprising because of the writing. He brought a presence to it that didn't pan out. But
right.
Certainly, obviously, the Mixture is in the running, given that he's already won twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a bravura performance by David Soul. I don't know if it was his best work.
Probably not.
I did like when he punched Harrison Ford. That was cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So, we spoke a lot about that Penny Marshall guest shot. It stood out.
Right.
Like we said, it seemed like a pilot for a show.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yeah.
So I would leave her in.
Yes.
And Ralph Manza, too. He was good in that.
Very effective in a relatively small role, but a guest role, yes.
Harold Gould's eyebrows already won.
Yeah.
And he was excellent. Boy.
What about Burt Mustin
some of
and
these, we're going to have to tally up some of these just multiple nominees.
Yeah. This is something. Maybe nominee inflation, I think, might have something to do with it. But hey, it's no less an accomplishment for some of these people to get multiple nominations.
Which old man was Burt Mustin? Was he
was
the one that was
falling
asleep?
Yeah.
That
Charles
seems like
Lane
pretty
was
small.
Yeah.
It was funny.
I don't want to say he slept his way through it, but you're right. It was great to see him. But I wouldn't call him outstanding guest performer for these purposes.
And Harold Gould and Barbara Baxley were both very good in the streets of San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, for me, here's the thing. We've talked about the Mixter had the largest role by far of him, Penny Marshall and Ralph Manza.
Yes.
I think Ralph Manza, he did a lot with a couple of lines.
Yeah.
He was great. But boy, Penny Marshall, talk about to me, that's maybe the funniest Penny Marshall's ever been to me. And I liked her in Odd Couple, but just it was like the perfect use of her, just like using her voice, just her mannerisms, and just like kind of in and out, and just made an impression on what I think, and I like the show a lot more. It was one of the better episodes of the series.
Yeah,
that's why she's a really strong candidate for me. I would give her the edge over Ralph Manza, who played the bureaucrat who was fining them in the garage. So that would leave Penny Marshall and Mickey Rooney, I believe, right?
And Harold Gould and Barbara Baxley.
Okay, Harold Gould and Barbara Baxley.
Unless we're saying they cancel each other out.
Barbara Baxley I like, but I would not vote for her over Harold Gould.
Okay.
So for that reason, I would just eliminate her. I don't think there was as much depth as what Harold Gold's eyebrows
I
provided.
mean, she had that one great scene.
Yeah, but I mean, we're in heavyweight territory
Yeah,
here.
I would say we could eliminate Harold Gold too.
Okay.
And it's either the Mixture or Penny Marshall. How many times did that come up over the years, that competition?
Yeah, I don't know. If it had been, I would have liked to have seen the Mixer on Battle of the Network Stars. He could have competed against her in the obstacle course. That would have been a sight to see.
That would have been.
Him going across those parallel bars.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's tough because, you got maybe a couple minutes of screen time versus somebody who's already won awards for this performance and carried the whole episode. Okay, this is going to be tough. I would have no problem voting for either one of them. The episode certainly could have happened without Penny Marshall, and it still would have been a good episode. And it was actually a little bizarre that they had them in this. It was almost like adding on some extra flavor, whereas the episode was built around Mickey Rooney, for what that's worth.
That's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
Again.
Boy, Mixer's going to be insufferable if he gets another award.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This kid, we're going into record territory here.
Yes, and I think him winning this is not anything against Penny Marshall's performance.
Certainly not.
It really was a good, and it was well written, and it was just a perfect little moment.
Yeah.
But as we've said, that character and his performance of that character really was paramount into a show, episode full of guest stars.
Right.
Chock full.
Right. Yeah.
Granted, many of them weren't stars yet, but still, he stood out. Even though he was the shortest of all of them, he stood tallest.
He's tall.
I would vote for him.
Couldn't have said any better myself. Yeah, I think we should go with Mickey Rooney again. Oof. Wow.
And three wins.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and by the way, last season Franklin Cover won for 227.
That's right. Yeah, quite a turn by him too. Ooh.
Okay. So the next category is our other listener voted. And
yes,
again, I haven't seen the winner, but I will read the names. Outstanding character name. Rudy Desatel from Kid with a Broken Halo. Dan August from Dan August. Nick Lobo from Rhoda. Raj Blake from Blake 7. And the Count Font Count from Sesame Street.
Well, are you ready for the results of this one?
I guess I have to be.
Once again, this is late voting. Made a difference here.
Was it a tie?
We had another tie, Mike.
Oh, my God.
We had another tie. Early on, it looked like, this is going to go a certain direction. But no, and first of all, I'm heartbroken. It was not Rudy Desatel. I'm heartbroken.
He got at least one vote,
He did
right?
get a vote, yes. We did not vote in these categories.
No, of course not.
It was a tie between Nick Lobo and Dan August.
Whoa. All right.
That's a little bit of an upset, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So which one? I guess Nick Lobo is odd because he's odd.
Yes.
Dan August is even because even.
Because this is even more surprising than the last
Yes.
tie.
So I need a range again.
Okay. Well, it seems to me it's obvious that it's going to be 103 to 604.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that does seem obvious.
I mean, just kind of jumped at it. Boy.
514.
That means it's Dan August. Wow. Ooh. Also the even demeanor,
Yes.
the even keel that Dan August has, until, of course, he loses his temper invariably at the end of the episode and runs after somebody.
Yeah.
So Dan August wins for another listener award.
Wow.
Okay. Dan August is doing very well tonight, actually.
It actually is, yeah.
Glad to see it. The fact that Dan August is in the conversation is good. Okay, well, that takes us to a new category.
Yes. I believe there's a nominee missing from this category.
I wondered about that.
The kids from D&D.
Yes. Let me add that here. Okay. And I'll just read the nominees here. This is Outstanding Septet. We've never done this one before, but we've never needed to, but Destiny took a hand here. Okay, so we have Blake 7, the Castaways on Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
And the kids from Dungeons & Dragons.
That's right.
All right, now, Mike.
Okay.
Please explain.
Yes. So Blake 7, again, we have Blake. We have Ava. We have Villa. We have Callie.
Yes.
We have Jenna. We have Gan. And we have Zed.
Yes.
Okay. 7. Group of 7. Team of 7. Blake 7 in particular, you can get a little confusing. Castaways, we know the Castaways. And then the D&D kids, we're also including Uni in that, I believe.
Okay.
I think that rounds them out.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Ranger, Cavalier, Wizard, Acrobat, Thief, Barbarian, Unicorn.
Okay.
That sound right? Okay. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Dungeons & Dragons might be the underdog in this category, but, you talked earlier about how they're stuck in this situation and they need each other.
Right.
So they do rely on each other, and each of them, as you just in their names, they have essential roles that come into play throughout the series and throughout their adventures, so that they're all kind of interconnected and dependent on each other. And I think that's very important.
It is.
They do function as a unit when they can work together. Now, having said that, I was not as into the series as I was the other two.
Right.
So that works against them.
Yeah.
It makes they'd be number 3 in my initial reactions.
Yes.
Gilligan's Island, iconic cast. Blake Seven, a cast that a group that I came to love through my love of the show.
Right. And of course, by the end of the episode, we talked about they were a sextet.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Unfortunately. Well, yeah, that's confusing too, because they technically had Orhak at the
To me, that's a knock against them a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it was readily clear to everybody who the 7 was, and I think even during the production of the show, I think
right. And
is
Blake? Is he part of the 7?
Right. Yeah.
Or are they his 7?
Right.
Is it like a band situation where you have a front man like Billy and the Beaters?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what their situation was.
Oh yeah, Billy Vera.
Yes, and the Beaters.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they were like I would say Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band.
Okay.
The Silver Bullet Band supports him,
mm-hmm.
but from what I've heard, they don't play. You generally play on his recordings.
How about John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band?
Ooh, I don't know enough about them either. Whereas Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers,
mm-hmm.
they viewed themselves as a band.
Mm-hmm.
And if he was doing something without them, then that was a solo thing. Now, Bruce Springsteen views them as a band too, him and the E Street Band, but I do feel like that's a little more of a hierarchical thing.
Well, to go back to film and television, what about Ocean's 11?
Well, yeah, I was wondering.
I think Danny Ocean is part of the 11, I think.
I think so. I'm not going to count them all because I honestly don't know.
Right.
I mean, the original one, I certainly can't name 11 people. I know there's him.
Yeah.
There's Dean Martin.
Right.
There's Sammy.
Yeah.
Peter Lawford.
Yeah.
And Norman Fell.
Yeah. Joey Bishop.
And some other people.
Yeah.
And the movie one, I could probably work it out after a while.
Yeah.
Or the modern one. But,
right.
Yeah.
To me, Blake has always been part of the 7.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's an essential confusion, and plus
later he's gone.
Yeah. The fact that they're not the same 7 throughout the whole series.
No.
I think that works against them. Too.
Yeah. Now, the Castaways are in a situation similar to the Dungeons and Dragons. One could argue it's less dangerous since there aren't dragons, but they are in a survival situation, and they generally work pretty well together.
I think we gave away the answer to this earlier to me when we talked about the controversy with the theme song.
Yeah.
The reason people were outraged because that the theme song, outraged might be a little strong. The reason why people are surprised to see "And the Rest" for the Professor and Marianne is because they're essentially part of the group.
Yeah.
And it seems ridiculous to not have them there.
That's right.
Whereas Blake 7, at any given time, yes, the 7 are great, but there's question about who's and who, and they don't last for more than, none of them 2 years at the most, I guess, for
some of them.
Combination. Yeah. So to me, I would lean Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, I would.
I mean, they're iconic.
A classic group, and even, later when they came back with these movies and it's a different ginger, it's a little, weird.
Yes, and very astute of you to point out the similarities between Gilligan's Island and Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, yeah. I think I did during the season too, because there are shows where, they're in this situation where you want them to get out of it, but they're never going to get out of it.
Right.
And you don't want them to get out of it because then the show's over.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't want them to get out of it because you might get some inferior television movies.
Correct. Yes. Although, if they had done Dungeons and Dragons Meet the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, that could have worked, I think. That could have worked.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, so we're going with Gilligan's Island then.
Yes.
All right, the Castaways of Gilligan's Island. Yeah, nice. All right.
And we're going to take a little pause, celebrate passing of people from our era, and then we'll come back for what we like to call the big categories.
Yes, it's not getting any easier, folks. Stay with us.
Baddies in Memoriam, Season 12. Peter Marshall, Phil Donahue, James Darren, James Earl Jones, Ron Ely, Terry Garr, Alan Rachins, Quincy Jones, Earl Holloman, Chuck Woolery, Tom Christopher, The Amazing Kreskin, Michael Cole, Greg Gumbel, Linda Lavin, Wayne Osmond, David Duclon, David Lynch, Bob Euchre, Rudy Martzke, John Irwin, Dick Button, John Amos.
Welcome back for the rest of the Batty Awards. It's been exciting so far.
Sure has.
What a night for Bert.
Mm-hmm.
What a night for the Mixture.
Yeah.
And Dan August in general.
Mm-hmm.
And what a night for Eyebrows.
Exactly, yeah.
3 eyebrows.
Yeah.
Harold Gould's eyebrows and Bert's.
And Bert, yeah.
1.
Good point.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Some definite trends tonight in the show long narrative. I know people love to create their own, follow along and
Yes.
the storylines of the baddies.
Yes, I know. I can't wait to read about it in Variety.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you.
Okay, so we have just 4 more to go, and of course the Genius Award.
Mm-hmm.
So first up is Outstanding Female. So we have late breaking news. I've been mispronouncing it. Sally Nevitt from Blake 7. Also Jacqueline Pierce from Blake 7.
Jackie, as I call her.
Yes. Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island. Dawn Wells from Gilligan's Island. Natalie Schaefer from Gilligan's Island. Valerie Harper from Rhoda. And Gene Stapleton from... I'm trying out for podcasts, bloopers, and practical jokes. Gene Stapleton from All in the Family. And last year's winner was Victoria Principal.
Yeah, I almost forgot that. But what a group. We do have a good group here.
Yes.
And again, talk about splitting your vote. 3 ladies from Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Gene Stapleton is great. To get into it quickly, I'll try to be quick here. But I've been watching all these shows that we're talking about to get a feel for them again, to prepare for the baddies. And one of them, I've seen a couple of episodes again lately, is All in the Family.
Yeah.
And I happen to see a very Edith-centric episode where she was just tremendous. So I got to admit, that's a little bit in my mind here. She is so great. Valerie Harper, of course, the show is built around her. And Blake 7, we've already talked about them. Jenna, she has said that she didn't think that the character had enough to do. And I think that's a fair assessment.
Yes. Of course, in this episode, she had the dignity of wearing a purse.
Yes. We should have had maybe Outstanding Purse.
Yes.
Meatheads or Jenna.
Right. Yeah. Of those 2, I would leave in Jacqueline Pierce.
It makes it a lot easier to eliminate Jenna, just the fact that she's paired with Jacqueline Pierce. Certainly.
Yes, the Gilligan's ladies.
I don't have a strong opinion of those 3 in this particular category. The episode didn't really showcase them, did it?
Not really. I mean, Ginger and Marianne worked on their plans together.
Yeah.
And, Lovey had to deal with 2 Mr. Howells.
She did have more to do. She had a couple of good reactions in there.
Yeah, she's not the one I think of when I think of the show, but, she's very good. We said that.
I mean, let me put it this way. She's certainly worthy of being in this category, but I'm not going to vote her for Outstanding Female.
Yeah, and I don't really think, in this case, any of them stand up to
No.
The other three in this category that are left.
I agree. I think we could probably eliminate them. So that leaves us with two legitimate leads.
Yes, and a villain.
Yeah.
I mean, Valerie Harper, of course, was great as Rhoda on both shows. She's very natural. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about, just the kind of relaxed nature of the portrayal. And the character's naturally funny, not sitcom funny, at least when they let her be.
Yeah.
And, so and she's empathetic. I can't think of anything wrong. And Jacqueline Pierce is great as a villain. Mm-hmm. Yes, can't be chewing scenery, but it's effective most of the time. And if she's let down, it's, the writing sometimes, like you said, be overused, being in places where the character logically shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think Jean Stapleton is amazing as Edith. And we talked about that when we talked about the episode, how good she is and how much she brings to that and how good she is and how likable that character is.
Yeah. And again, like how Archie Bunker's place is just a totally different show, and it doesn't work as well without her.
Right.
When she was off. Yeah, I don't think you have to have an Edith-centric episode for her to have a big presence too.
Yeah.
And just her reactions to Archie and just little bits of business she has. Yeah. Me, it's as much as I like Valerie Harper, I'm just not as big a fan of the show as I am the other shows. So it's tough for me to vote her. And I do give her credit again for sticking with it and being likable on that show throughout all the changes they did and the format changes and rotating different characters in and out. And oftentimes, almost forgetting about Rhoda, it seemed like, on her own show. Not her fault for sure. But yeah, I don't think I would go with Valerie Harper over Jean Stapleton or Servalan. We already gave Jackie Pierce her award, you could say. It's tough because, and again, like this episode, she's certainly not carrying the show, even though they almost treat her, going back to my complaint that you alluded to, it's like they treat it as if she needs to carry the show when she really doesn't.
Right.
She would be more effective, actually, in a lesser role, I think. Or at least the character would be more effective. Yeah, she's always great, though. But I think what Jean Stapleton does is a little bit more impressive.
And Edith, she's a big reason why we're able to see whatever's underneath Archie's unpleasantness. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy voting for her.
It's every episode. She makes every episode better, and it takes a character that I I think she makes it look easy, and that's not an easy character to play as well as that. I think the degree of difficulty is much greater than with anybody else in this category. It's with Jean Stapleton. She hits a home run every time. Okay, I'm good with that.
Now, I have a feeling she's a Batty, Emmy, Tony winner. I don't know about Tony for sure, but
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
I'm sure she won probably multiple Emmys as Edith. It's just something to keep in mind.
It's a shame that some of these performers aren't with us to be eligible for Grammys. It's going to be very difficult for Jean Stapleton to get a Grammy.
Yes, it is.
I'm not ruling it out,
right?
But that is interesting. All right, well, congratulations to Jean Stapleton and All in the Family, Powerhouse, our season 12 opener.
Yeah,
it's been in the running, but it's not exactly running away with the baddies, is it?
Not yet. Maybe it won't.
There's still some big categories left, though, including Outstanding Male Performer. The nominees for this Batty are Gary Coleman for The Kid with a Broken Halo, Carol O'Connor for All in the Family, David Groh for Rhoda, Freddie Prinze and Jack Albertson for Chico and the Man.
Ooh.
Bob Denver and Alan Hale for Gilligan's Island, Burt Reynolds for Dan August, Michael Douglas and Carl Malden for The Streets of San Francisco, Gareth Thomas for Blake Seven, and Luis for Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Emilio Delgado.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yes.
Larry Hagman won this category last year, too.
Yes, and he was certainly deserving.
Yes.
All right, well, it's a tough 10-gallon hat to fill. What do you think here, Mike?
Well, I think Carol O'Connor has to stay in the running.
Yes.
One of the great performances of television.
A Hall of Famer.
Love Dan August, I don't think that's Bert's finest work.
No.
He's a little too controlled.
If that had gotten a 4 or 5 season run like Bert had hoped, maybe he could have gone there. But yeah.
What if it would have turned wacky by the end? If his comedy sensibilities would have taken over.
Bloopers.
Yep.
Deadpan glances at the camera.
Yep.
I would watch that.
Yeah.
I would certainly have that.
Would he be doing the camera or deadpan glances or Norman Felby? I think up against these, David Groh was maybe not.
We gave him credit.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot on the show, and
I did too.
He's underrated, but yeah, I think we can eliminate him too.
Then we've these different duos from individual shows.
What about Gary Coleman from Kid with a Broken Halo?
I mean, he's very good.
Yeah.
He's undeniable. I mean, is he Carol O'Connor?
No, I don't think he is. I don't think he is, now that you mention it.
Blake, he's good, and he has that great moment of coming into the empty room.
Yes. One of my favorite moments of the whole series, actually. Yeah. I love that scene. But yeah, I mean, it really is. And it's tough to isolate what we saw, of course, but it really is a bit of an ensemble, too, isn't it? I like him a lot, but I just don't know if I can vote him here.
No. I love Luis, and he had a couple of shining moments in this episode.
He did. He was the superhero.
Yes.
He was the Arnold Mr. Buell Fever or whatever.
Right.
Very much enjoyed him.
Yeah, but I don't think.
No, just he didn't have nearly as much to work with. I mean, he had a couple of outstanding segments and made the most of them, but
now Gilligan is every bit as classic a character as Archie Bunker.
As anybody, yeah. Arguably, yeah. And I personally love the Skipper. Is my favorite on the show.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Different sort of thing. Remind me, Gilligan's that ended in 69?
66,
66
or 67, I believe.
Okay. And All in the Family started at
like 71. 70.
But still, not a lot of time, but two vastly different shows.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So that leaves us with Chico and the Man, and of course our two cops for Streets of San Francisco. Of the two cops, I would pick Carl Malden.
I would too. And Michael Douglas, I'm sure, would be okay with that.
Yes. Of Chico and the Man, I don't know. I'll let you.
Well, I'm willing to eliminate them because, like you said, the show isn't quite in the league as some of these other ones. Both how much we liked it and just like mainstream impact. It's still, unfortunately, it's kind of a case of what might have been. I think Freddie Prinze's charisma and Jack Albertson's old-timey showbiz wiles complement each other beautifully, but on their own, I don't think I think they're more of a duo than standing as individuals on this particular show.
Yeah.
So I would eliminate them.
Okay.
Both of them, actually.
All right. So that leaves us with Carol O'Connor and Carl Malden. Wow.
Oh, now there's
that
acting
is a powerhouse.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Man, those two. Yeah. Ooh, there's an interesting thought exercise. Swapping the roles there, putting Carl Malden as Archie Bunker and Carol O'Connor as.
I could see either of those.
Yeah.
In a way, I mean, I think it's easier to see Carol O'Connor playing a cop because we have.
Right. I mean, it's an ultimately pointless exercise, mind you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. All right. I think we got to go Carol O'Connor.
I think we do too.
It's like we said, it's a Hall of Famer, and look, we don't need to apologize for not voting Streets. We've given it a lot of love.
Yes.
That show impressed us a lot, and it was really one of the kind of gems that we found.
Yeah.
But Archie Bunker, and we've given a lot of reasons, right?
Yes.
I mean, we said what Carol O'Connor did. It's a great character. Even when the show is on its best, even Archie Bunker's place, and it's not even the same Archie Bunker, but I can still watch it even when I'm not really into it because it's Carol O'Connor.
Yeah.
He's just, there's just something about him. Magnetic.
Yes, and in this episode, he got to play a lot of different shades of Archie.
Yes, very good point.
All right.
On the family, yeah, getting the 2 big acting awards.
Yes. Okay, now next is best episode, and again, not best episode of the podcast, but best episode that we discussed.
Yes, and by the way, as per tradition, we include like a TV movie wouldn't be included in this category for
Right.
best episode.
But it is.
It would be. I mean,
It would be.
yes.
Okay,
Like in the past, like Exo Man,
Yeah.
Pray for the Wildcats.
That's right.
We've included them in the best episode category, not the best series category.
So, we have All in the Family, Archie and the Bowling Team, the 1984 Summer Olympics closing ceremonies, Kid with a Broken Halo, Dan August, The Manufactured Man, Donnie and Marie, September 24th, 1976, TV Hall of Fame, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Charlene Tilton, Leo Iglesias, Rhoda, The Honeymoon, Dungeons and Dragons, In Search of the Dungeon Master, Chico and the Man, Chico and the Van, TV's bloopers and practical jokes, Philip McKee and Joyce Brothers, Gilligan's Island, Will the Real, Mr. Howell, Please Stand Up, Blake 7,
Untitled.
did it not have
No, it had a title. I just think we don't have it
semicolon?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that episode that we covered.
Yes. Streets of San Francisco, The Takers, Sesame Street, Sing Along, in Ernie and Bert's Bathroom. And last year, The Ordeal from the Rifleman one.
Yeah, bit of a surprise there, but we did love that episode. Okay, let me start. I want to say a few things because here, the next couple, we're kind of getting into general things about the series, okay?
Yeah.
So this is as good a place as any to mention, I think. A couple of things here. PSA, if there's a show you like on YouTube or any other platform, watch it while you can. Because Donnie and Marie, as I've discovered recently, all the episodes we watched are gone, pretty much. And including the episode, I don't think it's available anymore. Like a huge YouTube channel, for whatever reason, that count is no longer there. So watch them while you can. Another thing I'm going to say, because I'm going to rule out Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous episode. When we were watching that, we kind of talked about, I think I even said like, a lot of this stuff would be considered gross now. And I was a little bit more in stride, like, oh, it's just part of the 80s. It was the thing. Well, I watched another episode of this, a full episode, and it was like the season 5 opener. It was incredibly over the top. Robin Leach was shouting. It was like, it was really a parody of itself. But it really hit me like, boy, I'm having a tough time getting through this. Not necessarily because of moral objection, but just everything that we thought was crass about it was dialed up a bit. And it was like really in your face about like the materialist. It was just totally off-putting and not entertaining really at all. So it's left a bad taste in my mouth. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to vote for that for best show.
Yeah.
So I would eliminate that. The Donnie and Marie episode was enjoyable, but I would eliminate that.
Yeah.
Rhoda, The Honeymoon, very enjoyable episode, but not at the same level. I would eliminate the practical jokes and bloopers.
Yes.
And, those are the ones that come off the bat. The Kid with the Broken Halo, as much as I enjoyed that movie, it wasn't even my favorite of the Gary Coleman TV movies I watched. So I would eliminate that.
And I would eliminate the closing ceremonies.
Yeah, not the same kind of thing.
No, and, I didn't watch all 3 hours of it. So.
Fair enough, yes.
At least not at normal speed.
Yeah, same here, I think. Okay.
So that leaves us with All in the Family, Dan August, Dungeons and Dragons, Chico and the Man, Gilligan's Island, Streets, Blake 7, and Sesame Street.
I would eliminate the Dungeons and Dragons episode.
Yes. And I would eliminate Chico and the Man.
Yeah.
It was a good episode of Chico and the Man.
It was, but not in the same league as some of these other ones.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're at Archie, Dan August, Streets, Gilligan, Blake 7, Sesame Street. Well, let's talk about the Quinn Martin shows. Both excellent episodes of those shows.
It really were. I think we sort of, I don't want to, we kind of lucked into the Dan August having like that cast and having it actually be like you said, one of the better episodes.
Yeah. One of the better episodes of an inferior show.
Yes.
Whereas The Takers is, I haven't seen enough to say for sure it's one of the better episodes of a superior show.
Yeah.
I do know it's a superior show, but it was a very good episode.
It was very interesting. A couple of our, listeners, mentioned it.
Yeah.
I think Charlie and Trevor, and I'm glad they did.
Yep.
But I don't think it's necessarily one that everybody would say like, it would instantly come to mind as one of the most famous episodes.
Right.
Now for us, yes, it was right in our wheelhouse, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would leave it in contention.
Okay.
And eliminate Dan August.
Okay. Like I wonder, like which would you watch a second time if you had to, or another time?
Well, I might watch the Dan August. For pure fun.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
something
too.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I would watch the take. I mean,
yeah.
I would say for now, I just don't feel like the Dan August is going to ultimately be in the top.
I think you're right. The Blake 7. Oh, it's Pressure Point.
Pressure Point.
Pressure Point. And actually, there was a lot that happened in that episode. It was a very consequential episode for a variety of reasons. I think that's a contender.
I do too.
I really enjoyed that. The Gilligans I think was a very funny episode.
Yeah.
Watched a lot of episodes like in a relatively short time, and that that did stand out. It still does. It was very well done.
Yeah.
Now, Sesame Street is an interesting case. In some ways, it wasn't. It's tough to judge. Oh, what do you think? It's tough to judge Sesame Street like episode by episode because this episode spotlighted some characters more than others.
Right.
It was a little different than others. It had some things that were like, oh yeah, and some other things, some other elements that we would like to see in Sesame Street weren't in there, and it's just because the way the show works.
Yeah, it wasn't. Or the main scene wasn't overly focused on obvious education. I mean, I think it was emotional education.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very, very good, but I could let it go.
Yeah, I think maybe we should let that one go.
So I think that leaves us with 4.
On the Family.
Yeah, Gilligan,
Blake's,
and
Streets.
Yeah.
If I'm being brutally honest here, Streets, I'm thinking Streets more in terms of how much I like the series rather than that specific episode.
Yeah.
So I would probably eliminate that here.
Okay. This is going to sound bizarre, but I might say the same thing about All in the Family.
Yeah.
It was a good episode.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think we picked a good episode. It was interesting, but it had bowling.
Yes.
Maybe if we'd actually seen some of the bowling.
Right, yeah.
That would have really made it special.
And more Alan Melvin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I doubt it probably doesn't come up in the top 10 All in the Family episodes.
No. And it wouldn't even necessarily be one of them. Well, yeah, as far as like, again, would I watch it again?
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily put that on the top of the list, but it was good. Yeah, I think we could eliminate that one.
Okay, so that just means Gilligan, Blake 7.
Wow. So the shows are at it again for best set, from best septet to, one thing.
It's so hard to compare.
It really is, isn't it? I mean, just simple things like one is like twice as long as the other.
Right.
One
involves someone dying.
Yeah. Right.
The other involves an imposter.
You know what kind of hurt me a little bit, but it still had an impact. Maybe this is in favor of it, is I knew something was going to happen. I pretty much knew what was going to happen in that episode of Blake 7. Yeah. I had it spoiled for me. But I was still, thought it was gripping. And actually, in retrospect, there were a couple of moments that were sort of like teases.
Yeah.
I think both episodes are indicative of what the show can do.
Yeah.
Gilligan's Island is flat out funny.
Right.
Blake 7 is, but boy, Blake 7, it had emotional impact. It really kind of represents the show at its best, I think, in a way that the Gilligan's Island episode, not that it doesn't, but it's the Blake 7 episode is exceptional to the series, I believe. Whereas the Gilligan's Island episode, it's one of many, very funny episodes.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep. So Blake 7?
I think Blake 7 for the best episode,
All
Pressure
right.
Point.
Yeah.
And a named episode, actually, too.
Yes.
It's a good thing we looked that up. Boy, that's somebody dropped the ball on that one.
All right.
All right, folks. Our final competitive category of the night is Best Show series, if you will. So this is the ongoing series that we talked about on the podcast. So just to reiterate all of them, All in the Family, Dan August, Donnie and Marie, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous,
Already
Rhoda.
eliminated.
Yes, de facto eliminated. Dungeons and Dragons, Chico and the Man, Practical Bloopers and Practical Jokes.
Yes, TV's bloopers and practical
TV's
jokes.
Bloopers and Practical Jokes. Gilligan's Island, Blake 7, Streets of San Francisco, and Sesame Street.
Yes. So Lifestyles, already eliminated. TV's bloopers and practical jokes.
Yeah, can I say again real quick? I watched another episode of that too, and it's funny because a full episode, mind you. And it's funny because that episode, I think the reason I hadn't recommended that was because there was some weird audio like near the beginning of it, but I stuck with it, and it was even more quintessential of that show than the one we watched because it had like people sending in their own funny videos, allegedly funny videos. It did have Robert Klein, but it had Len Sella's Silly Cinema. I mean, it had all these kind of elements like that really just showed that there, and it had like a good 5-minute segment at least of Ed and Dick making jokes over old footage of a serial, like a movie serial. Yeah, so I don't think I need to say anything else.
No, well.
Except, let's eliminate it.
Yeah, and Donnie and Marie, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Dungeons and Dragons can go. Chico and the Man can go.
Yep.
Dan August can go.
Yep.
Rhoda can go.
Yep.
And we're back to All in the Family, Gilligan's Island, Blake 7, Streets, and Sesame Street.
Some of the night's big winners, I would imagine.
2 of these are obviously Sesame Street and All in the Family, 2 of the most important shows in television history. Mm-hmm. And Gilligan's Island, probably one of the most seen shows in television history.
Yes.
Or at least aired.
Right. And certainly I've seen tons of Gilligan's multiple times dating from when I was a kid. And Sesame Street, I saw tons of episodes of that.
Right.
I don't have as much of a history with the other 3 shows as I do with Gilligan's and Sesame.
No. We love Blake's, but it's a very uneven show.
It is. And boy, I tell you what, I had such a transcendent experience. And with, beloved wife of the show, Lori. Lori and I watching that, we just had so much fun. It was great. And that was a really cool discovery. And just watching every episode, and it was great. But yeah, I mean, uneven is fair. And the show changing cast, and boy, I mean, I love it.
Yes.
But I don't know if I can say it's the outstanding show of the season. I don't know.
Yeah, I have difficulty with that too.
Well,
hate to say it.
I mean, if you can say it, then I can go along with it.
Okay.
I don't have to say it.
All right. Yeah, and I guess Mean Streets, we could probably. It's about as good as a cop procedural from the 70s as you can get.
Yeah, I think the Streets is hurt, and I've watched a little bit more of that since our episode too.
Yeah.
And it's one I plan to keep watching, and I will probably learn more about. It will probably grow in my personal esteem as I watch more of it. But I just don't have the background with it. Boy, I really did enjoy it though. Yeah, we could probably eliminate that.
So Gilligan and Sesame Street are All in the Family. I like the Gilligan's Island is hanging in there with All in the Family.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot about our show.
Norman Lear and Sherwood Schwartz.
Yep. Remember the Algonquin round table they had? Norman Lear,
Yep.
Sherwood Schwartz, Quinn Martin.
I'm just kind of thinking of like
Who else would be in that?
kind of like the fisherman bucket hat thing with like Norman Lear and Bob Denver maybe.
Oh yeah,
They could have been a good pair together. Somebody should have had them like the Emmys or something present.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick is staring off into space.
Yes. I'm just thinking. I like the idea of like Sherwood Schwartz being like having the most esoteric jokes and stuff, whereas Norman Lear just going for the cheap gag every time when they were together at the Algonquin round table,
yeah.
the modern Algonquin, the 60 years ago modern Algonquin round table.
Fred Silverman would be there too.
Of course.
Yeah, and every once in a while Larry Gelbart would show up.
And Jeffrey Scott.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him on that crew.
he and Sherwood Schwartz. Sherwood Schwartz was his mentor. Okay.
All right. Well, okay. I'll tell you what. It's tough for me. Like, it seems like we feel like a responsibility with these baddies too. So last year we gave it to Night Court. Dallas was a big winner. We just because we love Night Court.
Yeah.
Was part of it. It was funny.
That's true.
And it was uneven too.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think we said like the first 5 seasons, and especially this couple, were so good. I think Blake 7, only 4 series. It's shorter. It would really have to. Some of these things that we're eliminating, they would just have to be like really, really good to kind of compete against some of these other heavyweights. Night Court was able to do that at its best. All in the Family, I've just never been a huge fan of that show.
I'm not. I like it better now.
Yes.
Than I did, but I don't want to reward it just for being important.
Yes, I can see that.
And I think, it went on probably too long.
Yeah, I have much more of an appreciation for it myself.
Yeah.
After.
On the other hand, I so much admire the importance of Sesame Street. It's hard for me to eliminate that.
Yeah, now Sesame Street, okay, this is a weird thing because Sesame Street, I watched it for X number of years. It's been on, how many, like 55 years or whatever?
Yeah.
And I haven't even watched it at all, barely.
Right.
I've seen episodes, but for most of it, most of its run. And even like the older episodes we watch, we're basically ignoring, just by focusing on the 70s and 80s, we're ignoring, 25 years of the show.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing. Like,
it is.
Again, like, how do you compare like a show that's been around for 50 some years to these episodic shows? That said, Sesame Street, it accomplishes what it means to do.
Yeah.
It had an impact on us personally and many people of our generation. And I think one thing that was cool about doing the episode on the podcast is we went back, and not just that episode, but we did watch other, segments and stuff and kind of revisiting it. We're like, this stuff's still entertaining.
Yeah.
On multiple levels.
Yeah.
And that's quite an accomplishment.
Right. And it gave, I think, the Muppets that springboard that Jim Henson had been looking for, even though they had been around. But you got to wonder if he could have, like the Muppet Show and all of that could have happened without the attention that Sesame Street got for the 4 or 5 years before that happened.
And as we sit here in, the man's garage, Ed Brown's garage,
yes.
Sesame Street has a relatively uncertain long-term future ahead of it. But the fact is it's still around.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, we haven't focused on the last, couple decades of the show, but it still gets credit for being a survivor and still being around and successful. And Gilligan's Island, I have a fondness for it because I grew up watching it. I don't know if I would have the same fondness if I hadn't grown up watching it, although I do enjoy watching it, and I'm still watching it now. I would not pick Gilligan's Island, I think.
No.
Yeah, I think I would. To me, it's between All in the Family and Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And personally, I'm picking the best show. I love Sesame Street.
Yeah, me too.
I don't watch it now so much, but you know what?
And while All in the Family is funny, it is not a joyous show. Sesame Street brings people joy.
Yes.
Which Gilligan's Island does too. But
Yeah.
the Sesame Street is doing both things. It's doing important stuff and it's making people happy.
Yeah. I think All in the Family had aspirations to maybe change things, and that's probably inflated over the years. But did it really have much of an effect? Probably not. Did it make not in the way Sesame Street expected.
No.
As far as just impact, period. All right, I think we're going to go Sesame Street then.
Yep.
All right,
That's right.
congratulations, Sesame Street.
Okay, and that just leaves us with one final award.
Yes, and the phrase "last but not least" was never more apt.
Yeah. So this is our Robert Pine Genius Award, named after Robert Pine, wonderful actor. And we like to give it to someone like Robert Pine, a supporting actor who makes a lasting impact.
Yes.
And just, you want to watch them when they show up on screen. Last year's winner was Jack A. from 227. And this year, it's Paul Darrow, who played Avon. Avon Kerr?
Care Avon, I think.
Care Avon, that's right. It's Avon on Blake 7, who was a delight to watch.
Yes.
In a very, the morally gray member of the team.
And I want to say to Lori, if she's listening to this in the car for the first time, and she's been wondering why we haven't mentioned Avon, well, here's our chance to praise Paul Darrow's performance.
That's right. And and as we said later in the run of the show, he became ostensibly the lead, but that was after a couple seasons of being the second banana, but wanting to be the lead.
I think there's a lot of fans of the show who would say, hey, it should be Avon 7, and you can make a legitimate.
So congratulations to both Paul Darrow and Avon for winning the Genius Award. You're in good company.
Yes, and I get the feeling that Paul Darrow would say that it was very appropriate that he win the Genius Award.
He would. You know who would disagree? Orac.
Yes. But you know what's cool about Paul Darrow's performances and about Paul Darrow is, and also I'll say, like, it's possible that over in Blake 7 does have a huge cult following. I wonder maybe in England he was maybe more appreciated than he was over here, where the show didn't get as much exposure. So he might be more considered, more of a bigger star, I guess. But
yes, and as YouTube has taught us, he could be just as compelling in a Blimpies commercial.
Yes.
Which I think it was just voiceover, right?
I think so. Yeah, that one was.
Or one for a mobility scooter.
Yes. I do like, though, the fact that, like, he embraced the show and embraced the character, and I think even during the show he seemed to really, like, think about it and have has his own strong opinions about how to play the character, but it meant something to him. He really inhabited the character, and made it memorable, and is a big part of what makes that show so much fun to watch.
Yeah. So congratulations to him, and congratulations to all our winners. Some of them surprises, some of them not, and great night for the mixture.
Of course.
Great night for Bert.
Yes.
And I say Sesame Street in general.
Yeah.
And good night for all in the family, too.
That's right. And some shows like Dan August got some love that maybe people don't talk about as much anymore.
That's right. And Blake 7.
Yeah. A well-rounded evening.
Yes.
Quite a baddies.
Yes.
Yes, I'll join in that applause.
All right. Regular listeners know we'll be taking a little bit of hiatus here now and regroup in a few months. Of course, this is live whenever you're hearing it.
That's right, yes.
And we'd like to thank the man again for letting us use the garage.
Yeah.
Hopefully we left it as we found it.
Yes, and I think Louis can come down now from the roof.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Vote tabulation and random number generator provided by the accounting firm of Orac and Zen.
Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.